TR.
He's right here. Why don't you just talk to him live?
Oh, there you are.
Yeah, we just went live. So good timing, bro.
Good morning, good evening. Yeah, good afternoon. Yep.
That's the short version, folks. Happy Halloween, everyone. I haven't even painted it yet, but anyway.
Yeah, boo.
Boo. Hey, guys.
Hey.
Been a minute.
Yeah.
So your campaign just went into what we call in demand. I was wondering if you were going to go in demand. I was like, yeah, we got this thing set up for Thursday. And will it even be up? You know, so I thought, yeah, it's probably going to go into storefront, which it is.
Funmycomic.com, folks. Yeah.
Well, we had a few requests for it to be extended, and also obviously we're sending the files off for print production next week as well. So we'll keep it open until the print production is sorted.
Wow. Yeah. I've been warning everybody, informing, whatever you want to call it, that, man, they don't mess around. It's like 30 days. Boom. We're going to print just about.
Yeah.
Welcome to the show, Shadowhawk.
Hey, Shadowhawk. Nice.
Hey, what's happening, guys?
Hey.
Hello.
Well, you have to be happy about this. 4,590, almost 4,600 at this point.
Yeah, it's not so much the funds for me. It's the readership.
Absolutely.
I want the readership to grow, and that's why one of the core messages I've been sending out there is consistency and quality. There'll be another book in the spring, and then there'll be another book in the summer, and then there'll be another book this time next year. So it's there for people to read. It's adventure stories. Randy's written a great story. It's adventure stories. It's based on those Robert E. Howard characters, and it's fun. It's fun comics again. It's just like the old Savage Sword of Conan comics. It's good, solid action and adventure, and we're going to be here for the duration. So there you go.
Yeah.
That's
well, I know you pretty much had all the artwork done for the Atlantean here. The second.
Yeah, it's done. It's lettered. It's finished. It's in print file format. I'm just waiting on a couple of final things to put together. I've got to put an ad together for the Shadow Kingdom and a coming next month or coming next issue, should I say, piece as well. But other than that, it's ready to go. So files should be going to Critical Blast next week. I'll be checking out who's backed it from Europe and the UK, and I'll be printing those up through Mixam, and it should go out before the end of the month.
Now, is there going to be any difference whatsoever if I held up a American version and a UK version?
There shouldn't be. No.
Same thing, right?
Same thing. Should be exactly the same. There may be an extra page from the Critical Blast version because of their print formats, but the content will be exactly the same. So,
yeah.
Well, you know what I always say, Russ. Show me your Marvin the Martian, and I'll show you mine.
I got him back there.
That thing back there. You got one too, Randy?
I have a little pen that has Marvin on it, and a little spaceship. Yeah,
everyone's got a Marvin somewhere.
Everybody has a little Marvin in them.
Mine's a puppet, you know.
Oh, cool.
Now, if I could only find my disintegrator for Halloween.
That's a Venusian disintegrator.
Isn't it a discombobulator?
No, it's a disintegrator.
Oh,
it is every time
discombobulator.
I get out of bed.
I think he does that discombobulator as well, but that's not the one he's packing.
All right.
I don't remember the discombobulator.
Just be happy he's packing.
I need to watch more cartoons, folks.
Yeah.
This is the original story, the Atlantean. I know the first one. There's only.
I do have a koala handy though.
A koala.
Anyway,
get out of here.
Everybody needs one handy.
Yeah. I'll smack you. It's koala. I got a tiki cup. What else you want?
There we are.
Woo.
Got a Jolly Bee back there, if you know what that
Maybe,
is. Yeah.
maybe a coconut,
Yeah.
coconut drink. Oh man, you got to have your props, right? I actually, the only thing I bought for Halloween was this set of arms and hands.
Oh, there you go.
skeleton, because I thought they'd make great back scratchers, and they do.
Oh, well, Russ and I know that the best thing for a back scratcher is a T-square.
Yes.
Well,
You're
yeah,
mistaken.
I've done that too. Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
you gotta
I've
watch that
also
T-square.
found,
It's got edges.
Got that
Yeah.
handy too.
Hey,
Well,
Rex
I'm
and
roller.
Yes,
Randy.
Shadowhawk.
Sorry, guys.
Roller.
Yeah,
Got a
roller,
little
roller.
crisis at the nest here. I'm gonna have to check out for a few. I'll be back.
Uh-oh.
Okay,
No problem.
Take care, Shadowhawk.
be Shadowhawk.
It's
Is that the rolling kind, Russ?
That's
That's got the
rolling,
little
Russ.
roller
Got a
in
little
it?
roller on it.
Roller.
Roller.
Yeah.
Great.
I've seen them before, folks. I'm not ignorant. I may sound it, but I'm not
Yeah,
most
yeah.
of the time. Most of
I used to use those quite often. I used to before we had screens that you could draw on, kids, and before you actually did all your artwork on the computers, kids.
Kids.
I used to draw layouts for brochures. So we did. I used to art direct on brochures for people like Sony, but also for more local companies like Argos. You haven't got a clue who Argos are, but they're kind of like a big company. They have a massive brochure this thick with lots of products in, and you can go into the shops and put the numbers down and buy the products, stack them, sell them cheap, kind
I
of
know
thing.
the chat wants to know
Like the
if
Sears and
Hammer
Roebuck
Chisel-
catalog.
Yeah.
I know
So,
the chat wants to know if it's hard working traditionally with hammer, chisel, and stone, Russ.
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah, chipping it away. Yeah.
Yeah, like BC.
so,
I got to get this daily out.
Flintstones.
So I used to use roller rulers all the time because on the you
Uh-huh.
used to have to make sure that your text was right and that you had the right, where the key lines were and everything. Before that, I was doing magazines, and you actually used to have to draw the key line out for any images that you were going to have printed. You drew it out on a rotring pen, in a mechanical pen, and then you'd put a sheet of tracing paper over the top, where you would trace in on a big photomechanical transfer unit. You'd draw in from your slides, and the reprographics people, pre-press, would put it in where you told them to put it. You'd mark down all the colours in 4-color press. So yeah, I go back a long way.
So where do you fall on this, Russ? It has has digital, now it's just a tool. That's the way I look at it. But has it made artists lazier, less technical?
No, I don't think you can say it's made them lazier. It's just the world that we live in. I think. I mean, I've done a lot of digital art. Okay, that's where I cut my teeth really in the comic book industry and other stuff back in 2010 when I started in this industry properly. Because up until then, I'd been an art director, I'd been in code and all other kinds of stuff, and so I was quite embedded in the digital process. So the first thing I did when I found out that you could draw onto a Cintiq was buy one. And started playing with it. I was very much a big advocate of getting your hands dirty with pencils and paper. A lot of people after me would go straight to Photoshop or straight to a digital tool instead of understanding what they were doing, and the tool would drive the process rather than the creative process being driven by the designer. So that was always an issue that I felt was it would easily be fallen into. But I found myself really enjoying the Cintiq, really enjoying doing that. And actually, I worked out my inking style to a large degree through that because I was scared stiff of actually getting out a brush and a pen and doing it on real paper.
Yeah.
But eventually, once I understood what I was doing as far as my style was concerned, how I would spot blacks and how that would work for me, then I started getting brave, and then I started doing traditional work. So now I have a complete combination. So I draw my pages, I lay them out, as it were, in Clip Studio. I print them out to a piece of paper like this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so you can see it's just a layout.
Okay.
Yeah, and
Like
then I ink
prelim
over
layout.
the top of it. Yeah, so I put it on a light box and I ink with brush and pen over the top of it onto Bristol board. So for me, it's a perfect combination of being able to use the digital tools, because sketching pages in Clip Studio is incredibly quick. And then if you're not actually, when I did the Shadow Kingdom, I'm still nervous of inking, but I was even more so. So I was doing quite a lot of detail on my pencils because I was just so eager to get it correct. And then I inked over the top. So although I wasn't tracing, I was just inking over blue pencil. Whereas now I've got a bit more confidence about me. And what I'm doing is I'm printing those pages out and then laying down a sheet and inking freehand. So it's all just ink over the top. And there's more of a creative process. I feel like it's more of an embellishment than just a straight inking process. So I'm trying to kind of rediscover those things that were working 30 years ago and people would, genius artists were doing then. And I'm just seeing that as a very high bar that I've got to try and at least try to hit for.
I think with the different line weights and everything, that's where it really comes to, be energized. And then, of course, it placed where it can be in printable form. Although if your pencils are nice enough and finished enough and dark enough, you can just skip the inking process altogether and reproduce the pencils.
Yeah. Well, I may well end up doing something in pencil, but I think I'll still do the layouts digitally. Even if I lay a piece of paper over and then sketch over the top of that.
John Buscema used to do that with the Savage Sword Conan. I have several of those. And I had Ryan James of Octagon Comics. He did a cover for me for issue 7. And what he does is he does traditional and digital as well. But he'll do the pencils on one side, and like you said, put it on a light box and ink it on the other.
Yeah.
So it's pretty neat to see both visions, just
that's cool.
plot, and if you want it back, okay, well, I want him facing that way, but he's facing this way, because you can always flop it, right?
Yeah, you can just flip it. Yeah. Once you scanned it in, it's done.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Now, Randy, you and I and Russ and Glenn and Pedro and a bunch of others, we get together from time to time. Talk about that. Where and maybe drop the network in the private chat so I can share it out in the chat. Here is the link to the campaign, the Atlantean, and we'll be talking about that more here just in a second. But I did want to kind of give a shout out for what we all kind of do very early in the morning here.
Whenever people can get up. Yeah. That early in the morning, 5 a.m. Eastern time. We do a show called Comics by Night, where we look at great old sequential artwork. And then Sunday mornings at 9 a.m. Eastern time, we do the Sunday Funnies, which also looks at artwork and other more unusual material that are genre related to comics. We go through on Sunday, the Sunday Funnies, like comic strips and art books and card sets and that kind of thing. So it's really a lot of fun. We're archived over at the Indie Comics Network. Real easy to remember. Indie Comics Network. That's CS for comics. Indie Comics Network, the comic book Black Belt YouTube channel that Russ has, and the Randy Zim, that's ZIMM YouTube channel. All have those shows archived over there. We've been doing it for a couple of years now, and we just love showing off a lot of the great masters' works is what it is. We're currently this Friday, we're going to be going over Mobius book.
Oh, okay.
Upon a Star.
That, by the way,
Mobius 1, please do.
Hey,
And then Sunday Funnies at 9 a.m. on Sundays. This Sunday, we're going to be going over Fire and Water, which is a art retrospective of Bill Everett. It's a great, and his work early in the comic industry and his commercial work.
Well, I know a lot of fun. We've done like all kinds of stuff from Mike Clue to Kirby to Eisner.
We spent 3 months on Comics by Night going through Watchmen, one issue at a time.
Yeah.
We had the original. We had the original comics. We have the annotated Watchmen, which shows the work in black and white, and a few other books that have little notes and things about the work as well. It was a lot of fun to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we really kind of get in there, dig in there, and make comparisons or breakdowns of, and just kind of point out the designing of a page, right? Or the weaknesses, the strengths, because there are some weaknesses, in the art. I think a lot of times.
Yep.
Sometimes the coloring, sometimes the.
Yeah. But we do it because we love it. It's a labor of love. Everything that we show off is stuff that we respect in one form or another, even if we pick on it a little bit. We just spent a couple of weeks going through the really crazy old 1950s Stan Lee, Jack Kirby monster stories that are always a lot of fun. The broom that conquered the earth, that kind of thing. So giant.
I know we did
Easter Island statues come to life and that crazy kind of stuff.
Well, and we did the big Treasury Destroy from Eclipse Comics, I think.
Yep, we did. Scott McCloud. Yeah.
I had no idea till you told me that was a Treasury edition. I do remember Shout, but and tell them about what's kind of unique by that. That's Scott McCloud, isn't it?
Yeah, Scott McCloud, who did Understanding Comics and Reinventing Comics and the instructional books. It's the ultimate superhero fight book. That's what it is.
And all he says is destroy, pretty much in the whole thing, right?
It's pretty much what the villain says. Yeah. And they go through and they completely destroy New York and they don't hurt anybody. Nobody.
Russ, I don't know why any of these aren't showing up. They're showing up in StreamYard, but they're not up on YouTube. So
yeah, I don't know either. But there you go.
I blame YouTube.
You blame YouTube? Okay, well maybe they'll show up eventually. I would like to try. That was the one link I couldn't find. Was the of course I was kind of rushed too, but I put up most of the links, Randy, to your Facebook and to your X and yours, Russ, and to your campaign and all that. Y'all got a lot of links, and russleach.com, of course, arrowcomics.com, I think it is.
Arrowcomics.store.
Arrowcomics.store.
Okay, there you go. Yep. It's down there. So if you guys
Arrowcomics.store for the current stuff. Yeah.
If chat wants to kind of catch up on what you're doing, or maybe buy some of your product, because you've got other campaigns going, like the Full. I think that's still up on Fund My Comic, correct?
Yeah, it is. Yep.
Yeah, all through Arrow Comics. Randy, is this the first time you've been on here, or the second? Might be the first time you've been on here, actually on here.
It might be the first or second. Yeah, it's not often enough, Rex. You don't know. I'm a vampire. I go wherever I'm invited.
Yeah, well, I'm a vampire too. Work at night and sleep all day. That's what I did today. It rained, so I did all my running around yesterday and made it great for the kitties.
There you go.
There's Randy right there.
Yeah.
Indie Comics Network. That's what I'm wanting to see. Indie Comics Network. Now, Indie Comics Network, talk about that just a little bit more, Randy, because it's not just you. It's like, I think.
No, it's really the brainchild of Nita Lanning. And she started a network with a friend of hers that passed away. Now she kind of joined in with Daphne Lage and JD Calderon and a number of other contributors who all have their own little programs that they do. Everybody has a kind of a different theme or a different niche that on the network. And I just loved showing off old comics. So that's what I do.
Yeah.
So I tried a news and critique podcast that wasn't gaining a whole lot of ground, but I just decided to do what I love to do. And Russ and Glenn are over on British time, which is 5 hours ahead of us. So that's why everything's on early in the morning. So it's mid morning, early afternoon for them. So
you know why that's not showing up, guys? Because you don't have a wrench. That's
why. There you go.
Well, give us a
wrench. That sucks.
Which is bizarre because you'd think it would come through from StreamYard. We're in there. We're guests. You'd think it would just pop it in, wouldn't you?
Well, if we
I got to
jump
give you
over
guys
to
wrenches so that you can share your links out.
Well,
And I do
it was
hope that
weird
you,
because I got a little message back for all the YouTube links. They seemed fine, but the 2 links that I tried to put in for Fund My Comic didn't turn up. So there you
okay.
go.
If you
External
and
links.
I thought you had, I thought at least you, Russ, had a wrench, but if it'd take me a minute to figure it out. If you go into YouTube and say hi or something, I in the chat, then I'll be able to wrench you and you'll be able to drop those links. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Oh, that didn't turn out at all, did it?
Live and learn.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I was wondering why they were showing up in StreamYard, but they weren't showing up in
Where are we at? Double Flyer
on YouTube. But yeah, you got to be happy. I know it's not all about the money for you, Russ, but this campaign has done a little bit better, right? I think you were like 3,000 something on the last one, right?
Oh no, the last one we did. We got 10K on the last.
Oh, did you? Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay.
The Shadow Kingdom did really well. We were very pleased with it. We had 220 backers in the end. Although in reality, I think because there was a bit of an issue with the payment, which is why we kept it open for a couple more weeks, we didn't regain all the people that we lost. So I think it ended up,
right.
It was more like originally we would have had 250 backers. So we're very pleased with that. And this is a new venture. It's a different animal. Obviously it's black and white. It's not for everybody. So we expected to have fewer backers on this to start us off.
It is,
but the target is to be in excess of 500 backers at some point in the not too distant future. So we're going to do that by producing quality and consistency, which is exactly what I've been banging on about for quite a while. I think that's some of the issue with mainstream comics. It's certainly an issue with independent comics because people, it's difficult to rely on those indie comics because of the nature of the way that they're put together. It's nobody's fault. It's just the way it is. So if we can produce something that people can think, well, this is going to be here in another 6 months' time, I'm going to have in 6 months' time, I might have another 2 issues to add to the issue that I've already got. Then, and it's a quality and it's, consistently, fun to read, then hopefully word of mouth, as well as, all the efforts that we're putting into market it, will mean that we can grow the reader base.
Randy, if you would say hi, like comic book black belt did there, and I will wrench you as well. And I hope you'll take advantage of coming by and dropping some links sometime and just saying hi to the channel. Everybody enjoys it.
Just
there you go, Randy. I knew you could do it. I'll confer a wrench upon you, and then you'll be able to drop those links when you want to.
I thought I was putting them in there, but apparently not. So,
I'm glad I got it figured out. I'm like, why is this not showing up? Everything shows up in, except for the emojis in StreamYard. The emojis are like, what? You got to go to YouTube to see what they are most of the time. Y'all kind of had a little bit of problem with the first campaign, but nothing major, right?
Everything was cool. It was just there was a problem with the Stripe payments. And even in this one, we've had a couple of people that have not been able to finish their payment process. I think it's just there are just some cards or some accounts that Stripe doesn't seem to like. So I've already reached out to a couple of people, but if anyone's out there and they're having trouble with payment, just let us know, and we can get something to you, via a different route.
And Randy, if they go over to arrowcomics.com, what are they going to find?
Arrowcomics.store has a whole store over there of the current run of Arrow Comics. It's not just me, but there's a lot of my product over there. You'll find everything from the last few remaining Shadow Kingdom books that we have on hand at the store.
Oh yeah, yeah.
You'll find books like Alice in Chains, which is a character that I wrote with artwork by Abdul Rashid. The Paragon, which is a superhero story with a great little twist ending to it, with artwork by J.R. Harris, a character I created, really happy with, and a character I've done myself called HeroBot Zero. It's a little 3-foot tall giant robot who fights large monsters, defends his city from menaces as long as he can do it on the clock and get time and a half for overtime. It's kind of a little giant robot with a bad attitude. It's a lot of fun. And Calico Shards over there as well, with artwork by C. Michael Lanning, the great C. Michael Lanning, I might say. Mm-hmm. It's a fantasy book. A lot of fantasy type characters are all getting together to try to put their world back together again. It's a lot of fun.
And that vintage spinner rack, I know that there's, our friend Texas Dave Houston just ordered a spinner rack through Diamond US. They had to send it from Diamond US to Diamond UK because he's in the UK, and in American dollars, he paid over $700 for that thing. Randy.
Not surprising at all.
I said he wants one, badly. Yep. The problem is shipping logistically.
Oh yeah, that's crazy too.
To the
when
UK.
You're shipping, to the UK. This cost me a couple $100, but I got it at a discount from a dear dealer friend of mine who cleared out a couple of old drugstores. That is an old drugstore spinner rack. That's an original right there.
Yeah,
and it's got that squeak to it when you turn it. So that
you can oil them up all you want.
Yeah, it's missing the bearing ring on it, so it's got a little extra squeak.
Oh.
Oh, just a great noise.
That's music to my ears because you
brings back your youth right there. Yep.
I mean, I had no idea. I thought it was the greatest thing since sliced bread when direct comics went through, because I jumped on that at age like 17, opened up a comic store with another guy, and we got in right after Dazzler #1, which was Marvel's first direct comic book that I know of.
I think you're right. My books I used to get from Big Rapids, which is one of the first independent comic direct distributors that was up in Big Rapids, Michigan. There were distributors on both coasts, and then there was Big Rapids. I think Big Rapids ended up turning into Glenwood after a while. But the books I remember, I had Fantasy Quarterly #1, Cerebus #6. I sold through my store. Conan #100. I sold through my store and it was a little tiny room connected to a pinball arcade.
When I think of Cerebus, I think, the buzz of, Cerebus #1, rare, everybody wants it, low print run, and it's, kind of taken off. And I think sometimes the buzz helps something like that,
It does. Yeah.
Books, it's like, impossible to find. Of course, with the internet, things like that are easier to find, but not always, especially like if you're looking for Golden Age books or something like that. Some of this stuff is just kept by collectors, coveted by collectors, and it rarely comes up for sale, Randy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The Windsor, Ontario is where Dave Sim had that printed at Printy Press and Litho, and that's like an hour away from my house. And we were printing Arrow comics with me taking the originals in a camera film box, running them across the border over to Windsor for Kim Printy to print. Okay. And I used to scour the lower Detroit area looking for Cerebus ones because they were all over the place at one point. Some people say it was a so-called fake first editions. If you know what I mean.
Counterfeit.
Yeah. And some of them had, I found one that had Dave Sim's signature on the inside on the first page. But I used about 3 or 4 Cerebus ones to buy or trade, actually not buy, but to trade for a bunch of these hardbound EC volumes that we look at on Comics by Night.
So did you buy? It wasn't until I opened up a comic shop and we needed stock, but everything I collected was my collection that I didn't want to get rid of. So that's when I started buying 2 or 3 copies of something that I thought was going to do good. I mean, or to trade with, like you say, to someone else.
Yeah.
I mean, did you just kind of do that yourself?
Well, when we opened our store, we put out an open call for back issue comics, and we built up a nice little backlog there.
Yeah,
I've since moved all of those out. So
I think you know, if a comic shop's going to do well nowadays, it's got to have a good selection of back issues, or needs to get one.
Everybody's got a different philosophy of how to run a store. You know, there are some retailers that I love. We've got a local guy here, amazing bookstore, and he's been around for 40 years. He's got a backlog of stuff. I've got there's another retailer up in Saginaw, Galaxy Comics, and he's got decades in storage units full of collections. He buys out stores and just, you know, tries. He's got I would think at least a 6,000 square foot store with a bunch of back issues in there, a lot of long boxes set up on 2x4 tables. Just a great store to be in, you know.
Well,
there's other guys that just do new comics, and that's it.
I think we started collecting about the same time. Maybe my first Marvel magazine that I got, which was Vampire Tales #5, was maybe 74, 75. And maybe my first comic was around 75. That's about when you started, wasn't it, Randy?
My parents wouldn't let me buy superhero comics to start with, and I got my ass whipped. Can I say ass? Anyway, I got my butt whipped for smuggling a giant-sized Batman into the house. But
now, why is that? Did they?
Too violent. Just too violent. Yeah. Even this was back in the 70s.
Well, they should
look at how comics are now.
Seen you back in.
Here.
When Batman first came out, he used to shoot people with his pistol.
Oh yeah, just for a couple issues. That's the book I got my butt whipped for.
I got my butt whipped for. There you go.
I found it at a show. I looked at the price. I think it was $20, and I looked at the guy. I says, "I'm not even going to try to talk you down. I have to have this book."
Yeah, exactly.
It says, "This is the book I got my butt beat for." Yeah. But anyway, the first superhero comic I bought was Secret Origins #1.
Okay.
That had the origin of Batman, Superman, and a couple of not Wonder Woman. That was in like 2 or 3.
Now,
but a couple of other the big characters.
Was that old stories not reprinted, but redrawn and sort of redressed, right?
No, they were all reprints.
Were they reprints? Okay.
Oh, yeah. Then my first Marvel was Marvel Tales #6. Not Marvel Tales, Marvel Team Up #6, which was Spider-Man and the cat. And I had to buy it because I didn't know who the cat was.
Okay. I've got some production artwork to it. One page because I sold all the rest.
Of that issue?
Of that issue.
Really? That's John Romita, I think. Yeah.
No, it's
maybe he did the cover.
Adventure Comics. Jim Mooney.
Okay. Yeah. They fought the evil villainous, the Man Killer.
And I think it's issue 8, but I might be wrong.
Yeah. Issue 8?
Somewhere in there, yeah.
All right. Well, that's the Spider-Man and cat.
Yeah, but the cat.
I had no idea who the cat was.
The cat became the Hellcat.
Yes,
but it was her costume,
Patsy Walker.
that kind of conferred the powers, I think. But the Man Killer. It was all about, equal rights amendment, women, villain.
All that crazy progressive
That's
stuff.
That's probably her one and only. She may have died at the end of that issue. I'm not sure, but
I don't. It's been a long time since I've read that story.
Yeah, that was a fun issue.
I've got it in the essentials. I could probably 3 steps away. I can go.
Now, Russ, where do you go to get your comics nowadays, or do you?
eBay.
eBay, yeah.
Because I buy most of the stuff I buy is old. There is a comic book shop in a town local to me, but it doesn't have, and it does have back issues in it, but they don't go back far enough for my personal taste. I do buy a lot of reprints, like trade paperbacks and stuff. As I don't buy that many floppies, but occasionally I'll buy stuff. Like I got Tor, like a full set, Stalker, which was the first comic book I remember having.
Ditko's, right?
Yeah.
Ditko and Wood inking.
Yeah. And actually, somebody mentioned that they thought they saw some of that in my style, which I was shocked at. And then I went back and looked at this. I actually bought the first 5 Stalker issues from the States. It cost me more in postage than it cost me in books.
Yeah.
There was. I could see why someone might say that about some of my Spotted Blacks. I could see it.
Yeah.
So that was great. So Stalker, and then after that, I did have some other comics, bits and pieces, old Marvel UK stuff. So Mighty World of Marvel,
the stuff
and
that
that
I
kind
and
of
Randy
stuff.
would love to add to our collection, but we just don't have access to it like you.
Loads of
it.
Avengers / Conan, Avengers.
No, Avengers.
Strange.
There you go. Yeah.
Yeah,
I have a few issues of Mighty World of Marvel. But
great stuff. Yeah, I've got the first paper because it's all in newsprint. I've got the one with the first appearance of Daredevil in it, in his yellow and red costume, which is quite cool. And so I had a lot of that kind of stuff. But Captain Britain in 76 or 77, something like that, 76, that was where I really got into it. I saw Buscema being inked by Sinnott on Fantastic Four, Steranko's Nick Fury, Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. in the back, the stuff that was being done by Claremont, by a myriad of different artists, Herb Trimp, I think, but lots of different people on Captain Britain. Even the great Buscema had a run on Captain Britain as well. And it was just fabulous, fabulous stuff. The reprint stuff was great. I think it was about 10 years after it had been printed in the US. And that was where I completely fell in love with it. And then soon after that, I got 2000 AD. That would have been 77, I think. Yeah. And I started picking that up, and that was fabulous in its own way. That would be that quite early, sort of mid 70s. And before that, my mum actually bought me comics when I was very small. I mean, literally like 5 years old. And I still have, my mother kept it, and it's in the loft somewhere. I still have a picture of Stalker that I drew, that I copied out of that first issue. So if I ever get it out, I'll have to put it up online. I know
that I have I don't have the whole run like you do, or a big part of the run that's Stalker.
Yeah.
But I do have a near mint #1 Stalker that would be great to get graded. What it was I call it the newsstand collection. This guy that had a newsstand, he was, got this stuff out of storage and was selling it on eBay. And I was buying it up. I bought a lot of those Marvel classics that did like Moby Dick.
We've looked at a couple of those on the air.
Man,
yep,
all those stories.
Great
Black
stuff.
Beauty. Yeah. And they were like 52 square bounds, no ads. And I thought those things in there meant, I'm getting those compared to all the other stuff he was offering.
Yeah, I had a full collection of Captain Britain, but they were thrown in a dumpster when I moved out of house when I was young. So I had to rebuy everything, and I got everything. I got a whole collection of them here. But I also picked up a whole bunch. I mean, you can see how tatty this is. Yeah. I got a whole bunch of Savage Sword of Conan, and
there you go.
All kinds of material. And actually, what I did buy most recently was this.
Can you smell that acrid comic book smell?
That attic, yeah. You can smell it from here. I don't think I've ever seen that Conan.
So I picked this up. It's in that old 90s format.
Yeah.
So same as Judgment Day and the Wolverine.
Oh, the graphic novel format.
Yeah, the graphic novels.
Yeah.
This is Buscema.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
And
now I've not seen that particular one, but I would call that one of those 80s graphic novels, wouldn't you, Randy?
Yeah, I would.
91, I think.
91, okay.
Yeah, but it's
$9.99 retail here in the States. Yeah,
I got this for £45.
Okay,
which is about $60. That included the postage from Australia.
Oh, there you go.
Okay. Well, I've never seen that one, but I really need to look through it because I've got a few Buscema pages that I have not identified, and that's
it might be in here.
It might be a page from that because I've not found them in the Savage Sword of Conan pages.
Yeah, I've looked around and it's worth a lot more than I paid for it. So I don't know how I got it for that price, but
there you go.
But wasn't the point. The point was that I wanted to see that book in my hands. I wanted to see the artwork. I wanted to see how it worked on the page. And it was well worth it. Very, very. It's an excellent book.
And you had to get that through Australia.
I got that from Australia. Yeah, a guy who was, it was on eBay, and he had a store, and he basically stopped the business and was retiring, and all the books were there. So
that might have been a couple of issues of Conan that they put together and
oh no, it was. I've read up on it. It was actually a
full graphic
yeah,
novel.
It was actually he was requested to do it.
Okay.
And they did it, and it was along the.
Oh, just for the Australian market?
No. It was for that set of. There's a whole set of graphic novels at the time that are that size and that format.
Yeah, like Death of Captain Marvel.
Yeah, and
Super
well,
it was like
no,
that.
they're thinner than that.
Are they?
They're actually like magazine size.
But they're not on Conan, right?
No, just the one Conan. There's Judgment Day, which is Silver Surfer and Galactus and what's his name? The Devil.
Mephisto.
And he traps the Fire Lady. I've forgotten her name. She was Herald of Galactus.
Nova.
What's her name? Nova. That's it.
No.
So there's that one, which is beautiful, absolutely beautiful, and all that. Every page is a panel.
Mm-hmm.
So there's no paneling in it by one page. Everything is just one splash page with lettering on it, and that was a Buscema book. Then there's the one with Nick Fury and Wolverine.
Yeah,
Red. Oh no,
that was released as a Marvel graphic novel over here.
Yeah, and they're all
magazine size, paperback, square bound. Yeah,
they're all that format. Yeah,
I don't ever
so
remember.
I've got several of those.
Yeah,
and they're all fabulous.
That's
they're all
closer to
books.
your normal size over there. Over here, we go dinky with our comics.
That's magazine size, yeah. So it's like a bastardized A4. So over here in the UK, A4 is so I'm working in centimeters here.
I may have asked you this before.
21 by 30 centimeters. So.
You know the little Allen Class ones? Did you ever collect any of those? The smaller Allen Class. They were black and white with a color cover. UK reprint.
No, I never got any of those. No.
Okay. Have you seen them?
No, I don't think so. The only ones I've seen of that kind of small size would be the Combat and Warlord and is it Warlord?
Okay,
or is it
here's one right here.
Well, small
stuff.
Marvel did a series over in England that were about the size of ash can, what we would call an ash can back in the 80s.
What size is that?
8.5 by 11, folded in half.
8.5 by 11.
Almost like a little anime size.
Oh right, I like a little digest.
Yeah, if you take an issue of Titan, no, that's wider than what I'm.
This is Allen Class here.
Okay,
right.
No, I've never seen it.
That's bigger than that.
It's got a 3D effect, just the way they did the blue and the red colors when you look at it.
It's really strong, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. Here's the Jaguar, one of the
Made to stand out on the stands. Yeah.
Creepy Worlds with Fly Man, Fly Girl.
Okay.
Cool.
And they also reprinted, and you can find up on eBay the actual printing plates, the Creepy Worlds 30 something that had Fantastic Four #1 cover on it. Reprinted. This was the last thing, and I probably shared this with you, that Buscema did, and Gil Kane, because when Gil Kane passed away, Buscema took it over, Blood of My Ancestors, Superman, sort of Elseworld type thing, and then Nolan took it over after Buscema died.
All
so
right, okay.
two big giant artists die on this.
Yeah.
Sort of like very Samson like Superman.
Yeah.
That was the last thing he worked on when he died. I've actually got some original preliminary drawings and stuff for that.
Beautiful.
And where did we get them? eBay. We've gotten Jack Kirby originals and all kinds of stuff on eBay. Probably the best outlet, to find stuff. There's stuff that's in my collection that I would not even know about existed, if it weren't for eBay.
Always leery about getting original art on eBay because it's so easy to mimic, copy until you get it in your hands.
Yeah.
So
Randy, you wrote the Atlantean.
I did.
Which and the Shadow Kingdom. The Shadow Kingdom. Well,
I adapted the Shadow Kingdom.
You adapted it, right? Because there's 3 stories, right, that he wrote. Was there only 3?
Howard? No, there's a good for Kull. There's a good, I think 10 or 11 Kull stories. Only 2 of them are currently in public domain, and one of them goes into public domain in January. Those are the ones that were printed while Howard was still alive. And Shadow Kingdom was the first one. There's the Mirrors of Zun-Thun, and then there's the what is it called? The Blood of Kings or something like that. That's a crossover with Bran Mac Morn. That's just about to go into public domain.
Did you stick with the 50 pages on this, or has it expanded?
It runs what, 48?
It's I think it's 48 pages a strip.
Yeah.
But it's 52 pages in total interior.
Yeah, because the Shadow Kingdom book is what the actual story is 60 some pages, 69.
It's 70 pages. The graphic novel, the Shadow Kingdom, the graphic novel aspect of it is 70 pages.
Yeah,
and then there's another 30 page or 25 pages where we put the original prose in.
And of course, like Conan, Kull, and all the characters that he wrote were kind of like ancestors or whatever, right? They were all connected.
Well,
some of them are, yeah.
I think
Solomon Kane, definitely Solomon Kane, Conan, and Kull are.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
There is a made-up lineage between all of them, but he really created individual characters for individual time periods.
Well, you got to have a pub scene, right, Russ?
Oh, yeah.
That was his first requirement. Yeah.
Yeah, this is very savage sort of Conan.
I wanted a bar scene. I wanted a bar fight. And I wanted monsters. So there you go.
So do you talk it over with Randy when he's writing it or before he starts writing it?
Yeah, he told me what he wanted, and then I fit it in from there.
Okay. Okay.
Wait until you see the second issue. He sent me a rough outline that I went through and changed, and then we had a story suggestion from Charles Santino that I've incorporated into the story as well.
Now, how are you adding the grays on this, Russ? Is it a wash, or are you doing it? Are you doing it digitally?
No. I experimented with Copic marker on this.
Okay, all right.
So I wanted to see what I could get out of the marker, but effectively, it's a wash.
Were you happy?
It's just I didn't use a brush. So
were you happy with it?
I think it's come out okay. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I do too. I think it's brilliant. I love the gray wash in that. It
certainly added something to it. I learned a lot while I was drawing, while I was producing this, and that'll all be funneled back into the next issue, where I do even more with it. So.
I was saying yesterday, I guess it's like a lizard guy, whatever. They're over the city,
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
And then I guess these are some more lizard type, because there's a lot of cults and stuff like that. Conan and Kull were always going up against these different snake cults and things.
There's always someone. There's always some lizard.
Always someone. Yeah.
Lizard people. The Shadow Kingdom.
Through Arrow Comics.
Pardon? Huh? The Shadow Kingdom book is really the story that started the shape-shifting lizard people legends.
Okay.
It was written back in the 20s.
So that's the granddaddy of them all.
It is, very much so, yeah.
Uh-huh. Kind of like H.G. Wells would be like on time travel, I suppose, right?
Yeah, kind of. Yeah.
He actually wrote, before that, he wrote the Chronic Argonauts. Which is the first time travel tale, as far as I am aware. Yeah. And I actually illustrated a book for that. So
he and Jules Verne, what an imagination, at the time.
Oh yeah, crazy stuff. Yeah. Well, look at the stuff that H.G. Wells did. He genetics, eugenics, plant manipulation and food of the gods, lasers and mustard gas in War of the Worlds, not to mention Martians, life on other planets.
Yeah.
It's crazy the stuff that he was so far ahead of his time. Really started the ball rolling down the hill on a lot of that material. Yeah. A lot of those tropes that
Russ, I got to ask you again, something that's near and dear to my heart. Only death can save us.
Yeah.
What about it? I got to ask you about that.
What are you asking about?
Is it just like I think I asked you last time? Just like because I know it's kind of on hiatus as you do the Kull stuff.
It is. It is. It will be on hiatus for a while. There is a third story. Mm-hmm. It has been written, but it's just going to have to.
Now, when you come out with that, will that be done through Arrow Comics or just the way you've done it before?
Don't know. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, it could well be. Yeah. I mean, Randy and I. Once I've gone, he'll probably tell you different. But we're a bit of a team at the moment, so yeah, I don't plan on breaking the band up anytime soon.
Contradiction here.
I have a bucket list of stuff that I keep meaning to get to, but Russ keeps going, let's do this. And I'm like, okay. So that list gets put on hold. I'm lucky if I can kick, stuff out like an occasional Calico, or I just put, hopefully up there on the store very soon will be a collection of Ginger Star episodes that I've had done for, I don't know, the couple of years now that I put together into a book. I did this. It's like a female Flash Gordon type character that I just put a whole book together for.
I guess that's nothing new,
go up
Randy.
On the store.
I guess that's nothing new. Some like with Devil Flyer, I've had some of those stories done for like 2.5, 3 years, and then it might, but that's not extraordinary in publishing, is it? You might hold on to some stories for like 5 years before they ever make the right print.
Man, I've got a superhero team that I've been holding on to for like 30, 40 years that is unique and has a great title and great cast, a great hook, great characters. One of these days, it's on the list. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Now, what is the staple of Arrow? Tell us some of the titles that Arrow's published.
Arrow is a group of independent creators who really do our own and promote our own works. Calico is part of that. We started out back in '85 by doing with Ralph Griffith and Stuart Kerr really started Arrow Comics. The first book they did was a funny animal space opera that I did, with Susan Van Camp, who went on to do a lot of stuff for Magic, some card game, Magic the Gathering.
Card
game. We're going to kick an omnibus of that out here, hopefully within the next year as well. But Arrow back then also did The Realm, which was a fantasy title, Dead World, which was a zombie title.
Dead
Night
World.
Street.
I've got some Dead World.
Dead World. Vince Locke, who did some work on Sandman and just about every Cannibal Corpse album cover that they've ever done. The Realm was done by Guy Davis, who's currently not doing comics. He's working with Guillermo del Toro. If you ever saw Pacific Rim, every monster that comes out of that.
He's doing like
every kaiju that pops out has come out of Guy's head.
Wow.
So yeah, he's doing real well.
Don't think you can lure him back to comics at this point, huh?
No, actually. Honestly, comics kind of put a bad taste in his mouth, from what I understand. I don't want to put words into his mouth, but he's having so much more fun working with Guillermo. If you saw Cabinet of Curiosities, just about all of the odd creatures and monsters all came out of.
What about that underwater project, sort of the Gill Man project?
Yeah, that's him. Yeah.
Wow.
Yep. He does so. He's a phenomenal artist, and he's really kind of out. He's in Hollywood now and he's outdistanced from comics. But if you have ever seen his Marquee or his Baker Street, and then you look at the Realm material, night and day, you can see the evolution of his style right in there. Just great stuff. But Arrow also printed Night Streets with Mark Bloodworth. We did a couple of episodes of System 7. That was a superhero book that Ralph designed. Then Arrow went down for a little while because of the black and white bust. Then they came back for a little bit and did a zombie book called The Dead with Jason Moore and Jeff Lafferty. Kicked that out with Ralph Griffith for a couple of issues. Went down again and came back up. And I was running it by that time. We did Dark Oz, Wonderland, War of the Worlds, Arrow Anthology. We at Land of Oz. We did a ton of books back in the late 90s, early 2000s. Spank the Monkey was part of that. Then we went down again.
That one. You always bring that one up. I'm trying to forget that one.
Can't let you forget that one. I've had a book 40 pages in on comic book history with Spank the Monkey on the Comic Market's what I called it. That I've had sitting here on my bucket list forever. The few people that have actually seen it have gone like, just print what you got done. I'm 40 pages in and I'm barely up to Wonder Woman. But anyway, but that's that's a project of love. That I want to do that I will get back to.
I know there were zombie books back in the 80s and 90s, whatnot.
Oh, we started.
But it really wasn't until Walking Dead that zombies became popular. Why? Because zombie books had been out there.
Timing.
Timing.
Yeah. Well, Stu and Vince Locke were doing Dead World long before when Arrow shut down. Caliber picked it up and was doing it for a while. And of course, Kirkman has never seen one of those issues before. He did Walking Dead, or the Eternity book that was out called Walking Dead. But there it is. Then it doesn't. It's just coincidence that the first book that he did for Image was called Tales from the Realm.
Well, at
just a coincidence.
At the time, Anniverse, I was thinking that was one of the riffs on the sort of, I don't know how you looked at it. I'm sure differently than me, but just as a consumer at that time, and I probably picked some up in Chicago, which I think that's where we first met. You were on some of the panels.
I did every Chicago show way back when.
Steve Rude and a bunch of different talent there. I got to meet Ramita Senior there one year. But I was thinking it was like Troll Lords and Radioactive Black Belt Hamster, Don Chin's book, were kind of riffs on the popularity of in Anniverse as well. Was riffs on Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. They're kind of success.
Well, Turtles really kicked the door open for that whole black and white market. And
in the 80s,
yeah, some of them are direct riffs like Radioactive Black Belt Hamsters and Kung Fu Gophers and that kind of thing. Anniverse really sprung out from Susan and I just coming up with stories and characters that we couldn't help but tell. We lived pretty near each other here in the Flint, Michigan area, and we just kept bouncing ideas off of one another. I was working at a bookstore at the time. She kept coming in. We kept talking about stories, and we decided to work on something together, and Anniverse come out of that and a long run of just oddball, funny animal stuff. But Anniverse is really sprung off of a story by Carl Barks' Uncle Scrooge story. That they did called the 24-Karat Moon, where they went off into space. That and my love of space opera. We just kind of put the characters on different planets and ran with that.
It got you noticed by George Perez, didn't it?
It did. Yeah. Pretty freaky time, I'll tell you. We were in line. Yeah, we stood in line to get autographs by Stan Lee, and George is sitting right next to him. We're giving Lee copies of the book. I was there with Stuart Kerr at the time at a Chicago con. 45 minutes we were standing in line waiting to get stuff signed by Stan. He'd only signed 3 things at once, so I had 3 Masterworks that he ended up signing, 3 first edition of Masterworks he signed for me. But anyway, I'm giving him copies of the Anniverse, and George is sitting right next to him because George wanted to talk to him. George springs out of his chair and goes, "You're Randy Zimmerman, you do Tales from the Anniverse, I love your stuff." What do you do? No, and that's exactly what he did too. He had all that. George was a wonderful, beautiful man. Had this enthusiasm and this spark in his eye for the love of comics, and he jumps out of his chair and he's like pointing right at me. And what do you do? I just back up and wide-eyed. You go, "I like your stuff too, George." What can you do? And then the rest of the show, it was I had a head big enough I couldn't get through doors.
I was reading Tales of the Bean World, and he was, and the creator Larry was there both years, so it's such a thrill to get to meet that. And then he later became editor-in-chief at
Image.
Was it Image?
Oh yeah. Just why I never got any work there. But anyway, that's a story.
But now I love the black and white boom. I really did. And then
go back. I keep wanting to do an episode on all of these oddball comics that nobody talks about anymore. That were just
Cynical
genius.
Man, the little mini comics.
Oh yeah.
little stick figures. Anybody can get into comics.
Yeah, when I did my newspaper, I did Flint Comics and Entertainment, a local newspaper here for 10 years because I got tired of dealing with Diamond, so I printed my own comic paper for a decade. But I had to have Cynical Man in it because I was teaching cartooning after school, and most of these kids were all going, I can't even draw a stick figure. All I can draw are stick figures. Mm-hmm. And I'd take out a copy and show them Cynical Man and go, look, you can draw stick figures. You just have to know how to tell a story.
Yeah. Yeah. Eclipse even did an oversized mini. I don't know how you do a standard size and still call it a mini, but they did. It did at least one issue. I've got it. Yeah.
Well, Matt Fazel's from the area here around a Detroit suburb named Ypsilanti, Hamtramck.
It's really guerrilla publishing. It goes back to R. Crumb selling his books out of the back of the trunk of the car.
Yep, very much so. Only he would do seminars on how you can take an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper and fold it 2 ways and cut it just right and put a staple in it and have your own little mini comic. It's great stuff. Yeah, Matt's really a genius. I love him to death. I do. Yeah, great stuff.
He was up there. I remember exactly where he was sitting. It's amazing how that stuff just sticks out in your head, at least for me. And that's been about 40 years ago, but
much great stuff back then. So much unusual stuff.
There was a little known Eric Larson sitting all the way back on a table trying to sell the Megaton Man or whatever it was. The Megaton.
Oh, you're right. Megaton.
With
called
his
Megaton.
Two-toed, not as big a frill on his head, Savage Dragon, $2, and looked at it, thought it was interesting, but I was up there for like original artwork, some Golden Age books, and some stuff you just couldn't get where I'm at,
Some young kid named Liefeld was starting up about that time in those books too.
Rob Liefeld, yeah. I passed it up. I never went back, but that's.
I remember early in the morning catching Eric laying on a couch drawing a Thing versus Hulk commission that he had. See, if you know Eric, he holds his pencil in a very unique way, but he was just going at it, drawing, laying on a couch, just those old cons were the day. Just so many.
Yeah, well, I mean, it was all about creator centric. Right. It wasn't about the new Netflix deal, the new movie, or anything like that. And again, it's kind of like the direct market changed real quick, did away with the, was partially responsible for doing away with those great spinner racks and comics in the groceries. And about the only thing you can find here in the States are Archie Digest at checkout. That's about it.
Yep.
Yeah.
They had a Marvel license for about 1.5 years, and they just couldn't sell them because the newer Marvel stuff is almost unapproachable.
It's all
absolutely crappy in newsprint. Sorry,
it's all kids magazines over here with toys on the front.
Yeah,
it's very difficult to sell anything. They Panini do reprints of Marvel stuff, but I don't think it sells particularly well.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, over here when you go, of course, they're doing
imports,
full covers and stuff like that. But there's a lot of facsimile issues, and actually, Dan Didio over at DC before they fired him, or he was he was like miffed and a little bit frustrated that the facsimile, the old stuff, drawn by Gil Kane and all those other great artists, are selling better than the new stuff. Well,
couldn't wrap his head around it. He was selling as many or more facsimile issues than what they were new stuff. Couldn't understand why.
Yeah, facsimile issues are a big portion of the money for comic book stores today, I think, here in the States.
Can I tell you my Dan Didio story real quick?
Sure. Yeah.
About 3 years ago, I was at Great Lakes Con. Dan was there with pushing Frank Miller Presents books. He comes up to me and he goes, "Hi, Randy, I'm Dan Didio." And I says, "I know who you are, buddy. What's going on?" He goes, "I want to thank you." I said, "Thank me? What do you want to thank me for?" I'm just, He goes, "I submitted stuff to Arrow Comics back when I was a kid, and you sent me the best, most encouraging rejection letter I ever received." And I still have it in my house. I have it in a file.
Lord.
I have it in a folder. and I saw you were going to be a guest today, and I said, that can't be the same guy. But I figured out you were the same guy, so I had to come by and say thanks.
Wow. Yeah.
So I'm like, dude, if I'd have known you were that you had sent stuff to Arrow and you were up there in DC, I'd have hit you up for a job. and he laughed. He says, what would you ask me to do? I says, I'd have begged to be your reprint editor, because there's so much great stuff up there that's never been reprinted. And Dan was like, yeah. He says, I was trying to get those guys. He was long past DC at this point. So I was trying to get those guys forever to print the oddball stuff, and they would never do it. I said, I'd have done it. I'd have printed. You got such a wide library of great
now,
old
when you
classic
say
stuff.
oddball, would it be like Angel and the Ape or something like that?
Oh, we're talking. I'd have made sure that there was a lot more sugar and Spike out there. I'll tell you that, Sheldon Mayer.
What's Didio doing now?
Last time I knew, he was still doing independent stuff with Miller, Frank Miller.
Right.
Okay.
They had a whole line they were doing at one time. I don't know if it ever picked up or took off, but I told him I'd been working on a back when he was sending stuff to me. We had a whole supernatural soap opera I was working on that we almost printed over at Arrow, but the guy who was, and I'm not going to give you his name, even though he's passed, but we caught the guy swiping real bad, and he went on to have a career. But I had a supernatural soap opera that I was working on that was a lot of fun, real deep, real horrific stuff. But once we found out this guy was swiping, we had to stop the project. But
when you say swiping, you mean swiping artwork, poses, things like that? Okay.
Yeah, he was taking whole panels and just putting them in. You know, when we saw the artwork, it was all in spots, and different panels were done. Other panels weren't. You could see George Perez there and John Byrne here, and all before he sat down and inked them himself.
Like the old 1960s.
That's pretty sad.
Like the old 1966 cartoons where they did panel by panel, and you can go, that's
almost like that.
That's Gene Colan. That's Jack Kirby. That's Dick Cohen. You could tell the art styles from, the animation.
Yeah, we had to back out of the project at that point. But I was really up on doing that. But Didio had submitted stuff for an anthology book that we were working on called Spare Parts. And apparently I sent him a great rejection letter. So I don't remember. But he does, and that's what's important. So it's all good.
Russ, tell them about yourself a little bit. You've drawn Doctor Who, which I'm in awe of, because I'm a big Doctor Who fan. Although I did start as well about 9 years ago, and started with the original Hartnell, back in 1963. In fact, a couple of days ago was the first time that when Hartnell in the 10th Planet regenerated into Patrick Troughton, the second Doctor, and continued the legacy. Longest running sci-fi show on TV, over 26 years.
Yeah. It's such a pity. I did a lot of Doctor Who. I started off in the Capaldi era. I've done a couple of the other Doctors as well, and then the Jodie.
Jodie doesn't look too bad to me now.
Not now, no. I did her. I did a run for her as well. I did that in the Doctor Who magazine. I was on there for over a year. So
wow.
Actually, that was a run that was, although it wasn't my favourite Doctor, I'd have loved to have done a different Doctor. I did get a go at doing a Peter Cushing strip, which I was really proud of.
I always forget about Peter Cushing. He did the 2-color movies in the 60s.
That's right. So I got to do a few Doctors. I got to have an extended run, like over a year in the Doctor Who magazine. So for me, that was one of those things that I chalked off.
Bucket list.
Yeah, it was definitely a bucket list item. I haven't drawn for mainstream American comics. I've drawn in conjunction. So I've actually been involved with the editors from DC and Marvel for overseeing the books that I've been doing with their European partners, i.e. Panini and I can't remember the name of the other people that produced Draw the Marvel Way. But several different studios. It's like with Warner Brothers. I worked in conjunction with Warner Brothers and Panini. So I got to be involved with that. I then drew Batman at the same time. I did a year's run on Batman. for a magazine over here. So that was another thing that I could chalk off. I'd actually drawn Batman. So I'd got to draw Doctor Who, got to draw Batman. I had a go at Ben 10. I did a whole bunch of licensed Marvel stuff.
Oh, I forgot you did Ben 10.
Although
I love that.
Yeah, although not like I say, not editorial stuff. It was all single characters and tutorials and stuff like that. But it was still great fun, and it was still licensed material, and I loved it. I did that for 4 years. So it was 100 issues. And that was great fun, but all that's kind of behind me now. I can't see that I'd ever get a job in the mainstream anymore.
Yeah.
Which is, if that's the case, then that's fine. I'm absolutely enjoying what I'm doing. So,
besides Marvel and DC, who do you consider mainstream?
Well, all of them. I mean, Image, Dark Horse, Boom. They're all mainstream because they've all got millions of dollars to play with. Whether they're borrowed millions,
what about
whether
Titan?
Their own
That's
millions.
okay, isn't it? Titan.
Titan is a reprint. Yeah, I mean, you've got Titan and you've got Panini. Tonight, Titan are doing a great run on Conan at the moment. That's probably, I think that's probably the best comic on the mainstream market. If they came to me and asked me to do that, I would love to.
I'd probably be out of a job.
I of course I'd do that.
I get back to my bucket list.
But that's not why we're doing this. This is not this is not me looking to get a job elsewhere. Right. This is me doing what Randy and I love. So it's working in the mainstream is obviously it used to be good for pay, but I don't believe that that's the case anymore. As in, it's not the industry that it once was. That's not to say people don't get paid. It's not to say that larger companies aren't paying people, but the wages aren't the same as they were.
Is it going to turn around? Is it? I
don't know.
It wasn't that great of an industry to start with. As far
exactly, it wasn't like the artists were that appreciated in the first place.
I think the model they've always used an old model to the sweatshops of the 30s and the 40s. Where you got like $5 a page. Yeah. It basically was a sweatshop.
And then you've gone even further now.
Yeah.
You've gone even further now. So if it was just a case of it's a sweatshop, I think I'd be better placed because I can draw fairly fast still, even in my old age. I can draw fairly quickly. I think I'm fairly competent. I'm reliable. Okay, I'm professional. So that should get me the job. But that was never enough to get you the job, and it's even worse nowadays. So I think the best thing to do is just do your own thing and make it work. With some hard work and some talent. That's just, I'm not being arrogant there, but that's what you need. You need that. You need a bit of talent. You need a bit of something about you, a bit of hard work. Get out there and do it. I can't see me working in the mainstream. Like I'm saying, if somebody came and offered me a job, I'd have to seriously consider it. But that's not what I'm looking for. So I'm just going to carry on doing what we're doing because we love doing this.
Yeah. And I mean, you want to bring. I mean, you're not doing Conan because Conan's being done to death. Really, I mean.
Well, no, I'm not doing Conan because we get sued if we did it. Else we would. I would have been more than happy to have done adaptations of Conan.
No, it is public domain in UK.
No, it's not. No, it's not. Okay. No, that's the trouble. The trouble with Conan is so many restrictions on where it's been printed in the past, and so the dates don't all marry up. Then there's trademarks and all other kind of stuff. So what we can do is we can take the Shadow Kingdom, which is the first, sword and sorcery. Okay, what's happened there? Which is the first, which is the first sword and sorcery book that Robert E. Howard produced, with the characters of Kull and Brawl within it and the world within it, and we can riff off that. We can use that as a starting point because that is truly in public domain. Okay, but we can't we can't use the word Kull on the front because later on Kull was trademarked.
Yeah.
Okay, and because of the film and all other kinds of stuff, we can't portray Kull with a scar down his face and with a
squared off crown on his
squared
head.
off crown, because that's Marvel. Marvel did it that way. Okay, so you've got to be careful the way you reproduce it. But the core to it, the essence that was in the Shadow Kingdom, is totally public domain, and that is where we've used. That's our starting point, and we've jumped off there.
Characters like Zorro that are
exactly. If you go back to the original, okay, so in a few years' time, Superman, the one that can jump tall buildings and can't fly, okay, and isn't godlike,
had the little curl.
He will be in public domain, although obviously I'm sure there'll be fights about it. But fights. Kull is totally public domain. Okay, that character within the Shadow Kingdom, we're using that and the environment to riff off and to move forward with our version of what went on after those events.
The Shadow Kingdom Kull is in public domain.
Yeah.
The other stories that Howard wrote that didn't get printed again until the 60s, those are not in public domain. So we have to be very careful to stay away from those.
Yeah. But now you did the Shadow Kingdom, an adaptation, and now the Atlantean. But the Shadow Kingdom, we should mention, is also available as a catch-up, right?
Yep, in the campaign. Yeah,
in the campaign, you can pick up a hardback version of it. Yeah,
right, and right there.
And Russ left off the word "beautiful." You can pick up a beautiful hardcover of that.
It is nice. Yeah,
it's a beautiful product. Yeah.
Yeah,
it's $40, I think, for the hardback.
But you're getting the Atlantean #1 and a hardback version for $45.
Okay,
so that's a bargain.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And you're publishing now. You were doing foreign languages with the book, correct? Like Portuguese.
Yeah. Red Dragon is a publisher in Brazil, and they approached us. And they're reproducing the Atlantean. They've already done the Shadow Kingdom, and they're reproducing the Atlantean in Brazil in Portuguese. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah. And how do you see sales down there? Is it just like, are they just re-releasing it or something?
They're doing a translation and re-releasing it. Yeah.
Okay. And then how do they distribute it?
Through their distributors down there,
like Diamond. Up here?
Well, they started with a crowdfunding campaign down there.
Oh, they did. Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
And now they're doing
from their website.
Yeah. There's a phenomenal trailer for it that we had nothing to do with online. It's just amazing, just beautiful.
It's a great trailer.
Oh yeah,
very cinematic.
Yep.
If you're going
they sell from their website. And they have a distribution model. I don't know exactly what they're doing, but they know what they're doing. Their website is fantastic. It's got some great stuff on there. They do a lot of different types of comics, and they're really into sword and sorcery. So.
Are you guys going to translate in any other languages, or is this something that just opened up and you said, let's do this?
Yeah, it's something that opened up, but I would be I'm seriously going to consider perhaps French or Spanish or German, because it's the European market over here it's an open door if you can put the right product in it.
Mm-hmm.
And we've been talking about once we get to the end of the first volume, which is probably the first 4 issues, doing an omnibus of the book, which would be about 200.
There you go.
230 pages.
Hardback editions are more prevalent over there, I think.
Yeah, if we could have that in French, that might go down really well.
Oh yeah.
I have connections over here that I could get something translated. Because you can't just run it through Google or whatever. You have to get someone who understands colloquial language.
Yeah.
Can't
ask Google anyway.
Yeah, can't ask Google. And then we've got to find some way of accessing a publisher. So whether we'd have to go through an agent or whatever, that's something for the mid future, as it were. Let's see where we are in a year's time. Hopefully we'll have done 4 issues, or we'll be on our 4th. And I'll be looking to stick out an essential Atlantean.
Am I correct over there? Sequential artwork, comic artwork, the creators and what they do are held in much higher esteem than they are over here in the
No,
States.
they are in
they're not.
Europe.
Yeah,
They are in
Yeah,
Europe.
in Europe.
Yeah,
That's what I'm
not
saying.
in the UK. No,
Not in the UK.
In the
Okay.
UK, it's been just as snobby as it's been in the States.
Wow. Okay.
Comic books.
Yeah, they're for kids.
They're for kids. Yeah.
They're for kids. It's not a proper art form. No. Whereas
Well,
Europe,
talking to you two,
really,
I don't think you're ever going to grow up. I think that's what kind of keeps us young. We read comics. We, enjoy that side of life. I don't know. It's hard to explain to someone who doesn't read comics. It's like I'm getting ready to turn 59 in a couple of days and say goodbye to my 50s after next year, and go into my 60s. But I still enjoy comics.
Age is just a number.
Yeah. No. As far as I'm concerned, it's the best storytelling medium that we have.
Yeah.
It's better than film. It's better than just
and one of the most daunting, I think. I mean, because you got the art, you've got the inking, you got the lettering process, you got the colors that can ruin great artwork, but bad inkers and that's the one problem I had maybe with the magazines is besides the cost, because those I always dickered in my head that Conan's great, but I for the same, I was more likely to get the comic than I was the magazine, because unless the magazine had one of those great painted covers by Bob Larkin or something like that, but it was in black and white, and I know, big snob on the black and white, and I love the black and white boom we were talking about in the 80s. It's the creativity, the buzz, Randy. I mean, what I'm talking about, because you lived it. It's like, wow, comics are booming. They really are booming in the 80s.
Comics are booming. Yeah,
comics are booming. They were booming. Yeah, it's like everybody was getting in, for the first time. And Marvel probably didn't like it. DC probably didn't like it,
Oh no, I'm sure they didn't. No, they wanted it all to themselves, which is pretty much the way it is at the moment. But you just got to keep thumping at it.
Their grip on the art form is lessening every year with the more inferior product that they kick out compared to the indie market, and some of the product that we're doing now that just outshines it. You're going to see it surpass. You almost saw the same thing happen. Yeah. You almost saw the same thing happen in the 80s back during the black and white, because there were some crap black and white books, and a lot of opportunists came in and started companies and did really bad, really inferior product. But there were some really solid, just beautiful black and white books that were coming out at that point. Icon Devil comes to mind. It's just Galaxian, beautiful space opera book. The Troll Lords is another classic example. Just some phenomenal black and white, just unusual material. Then Image sprung up and did, large-breasted superhero books, and all the retailers kind of went in that direction.
Yeah.
And a character we haven't talked about that's been in the same vein, Red Sonja.
Sonja?
Isn't she a Marvel creation?
No, Heroic, I think somebody, Red Sonja Incorporated, or somebody sideways owns that, but it's still kind of connected to Howard, but not quite. I think Dynamite has that license. Last time I looked. But there are a couple of major female characters that she's based off of that are off of Howard stories, and I'm not sure about where they sit in public domain.
Would you consider, Russ, I asked you this earlier, would you consider Dynamite mainstream, because they churn out Vampirella, Red Sonja, and all kinds of stuff?
I think they're mainstream light.
Okay, I'll take that.
Technically, though, they're really, the mainstream isn't the mainstream anymore.
No.
Like you said, with those Archie digests, those are mainstream. Scholastic with Dav Pilkey's Dogman and Cool Cat Kids Club, that's mainstream because everybody's out there buying it. A lot of the anime material is more mainstream than what Marvel and DC is anymore, on volume.
Yeah, I think to a degree I misspoke. I think we're talking corporate comics.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Indie. It's to call like there's this catch-all expression, indie comics, and to suggest that Boom and Image are indie comics is, in my mind, ridiculous.
But back in the day, they were.
Yeah, they were, but they're not anymore. Okay, because
Not
there's
anymore.
so much money flying around, and
Yeah.
you know they're obviously not, because they get taken on by, you know, by all the main distributors and what have you. Is that, you know, whatever they push out will get sold.
When Dark Horse first started up, they were indie. They were doing Black Cross, the American Concrete, just some phenomenal, independent, beautiful work.
Paul Chadwick,
but they're not
Concrete.
But now completely different. They are corporate comics. They're a big corporate house, even though the products they pick up are individual.
Yeah. Well, IDW,
corporate.
IDW used to be
That's
an indie, and they're not. They're just a corporate comics, and they've completely failed as well. So, listen, okay, I'm going to show you something now, okay, and then I'm going to have to duck out because I've got to go and get someone. All right, sorry, but I will leave Randy to tell you everything else that you require.
Oh, we can go for another 3 hours. Rex and I love to talk. So,
so I'll just share this with you, just so that you can see what's going on. This is this is a pin-up from the back of the book. This is the kind of art you're going to be seeing in here.
Now leave it up there. Leave it up there now.
There you go.
Look at that. Now, are you really trying to draw Kull, or are you, since I can't do Conan, it's kind of Conan Kull combined?
No. This is Kull. This is Kull.
Okay.
He looks similar. He's got the black hair and what have you, but he, you know, as you can see, he's got like the waistcoat on. He's got the trousers.
Well, the only reason I ask is you can't do Kull, and I know you would love to do Kull. If we compared this with the way you would do Kull, what would be different?
Oh no, we're doing Kull. Don't
Kull.
mistake us.
No,
We're just not doing Marvel's Kull.
We're not doing Marvel's Kull. That's all.
Yeah.
If Conan is more likely to have his legs showing for a start.
Yeah. I was going to say he probably wouldn't have pants on, would he?
Yeah. So I mean, both Kull and Brawl have clothes. You know, we've styled them. We've given them a look. They're out there in the wilds chasing down the Serpent Kingdom incognito to a large degree. Okay, so they're not dressed up in finery. They don't have their chainmail on or any kind of royal attire. Okay, he's got to look like one of the guys. Do you know what I mean? He's got to look like one of the people that are just trolling around on their horses, and that's why we've put the waistcoat on him and given him the pants and the boots and what have you. The fact that he's got long dark hair, that's just a thing. Kull does.
It's in the story.
The way Kull looks is in the story.
It's in the
story.
So
we're not doing a Conan light. This is Kull. There are obvious similarities. That's all.
I was just like wondering how you would do, because they are similar characters. They're sort of barbarian, in an age of where
on the surface, very similar characters. In fact, the first Conan story is really a spliced up Kull story that I absolutely love. That we can't even come remotely close to touching.
No.
But and I think in my opinion, it's one of Howard's best written stories, the original Kull story, not the Conan. The first Conan story was the Phoenix and the Sword, which is pretty much the Kull story hatcheted over, and instead of King of Atlantis, he's King of Aquilona, and he adds a sword with a demon in it and a couple other things, and he literally strips a lot of Kull's personality out of the character for Conan. Conan is much more barbaric, much more a little less civilized than what Kull is. Kull is always introspective. He's always thinking. Kull was really, in my opinion, from everything that I've read about Howard and his life, Kull is a lot closer to Howard and how he was in real life than what Conan is. Conan is wish fulfillment, pure barbarian anger.
Take the women.
Yeah, take the women. Kull, on the other hand, he's introspective. He's a little bit more reserved. Women aren't that quite important to him as Conan. feels. And right now, in the stories that we're doing, him and Brule have a driving need to rid the world of this serpent race, this serpent demon race.
Mm-hmm.
But Kull is always questioning himself, where Conan would just blindly run in and start hacking things up. Kull would actually stop and ask if this is the thing that he wants to do before he goes full barbarian.
And then take the women.
Women come later.
Women come later.
Women come later. Thank you, Russ, for coming by.
I've got no problem. Thank you so much for having us on.
Russ.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
If anybody's out there who has backed the book, because I know we went up to 132 or something while we were on air.
Oh, okay.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you to everyone who's backed. All I can say is, all you can do now for us is just keep sharing. Just keep sharing, and once you've got the book, if you like it, which we hope you do, we love producing it. Tell everybody about it. Get your friends to buy it.
4,600. Awesome.
So we're absolutely blown away by the support, but we want to get it into as many people's hands as possible. If for some reason you're out there and you've not been able to buy it this time, issue 2 will be available in March 1st next year. That's when we will crowdfund it. We would go earlier, okay, but Christmas and everything, it's difficult for people.
First quarter of the year is always pretty hard.
So we're going to put that out there 1st of March. Again, the book will be finished. In fact, by the time 1st of March rolls around, issue 3 will be in production. Okay, so you can pick up issue 1 when you pick up issue 2. So if you've not been able to do it this time, we know it's difficult for everyone out there, but you will be able to pick up issue 1 when you pick up issue 2. So just remember that, okay? And again with issue 3, So keep that in mind, spread it around, let everybody know about it. We're here to stay. Okay. And thank you.
One last question, Russ. Are you working on 3 already?
No, but we are working on. Well, Randy might be thinking about 3.
Okay.
I'm about to start issue 2 when I get the finalized script next week.
Oh, issue 2. Okay.
Well, he'll get it in chunks probably.
But now you like to have it all done before you. 2 is pretty close to done before you launch it, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Next time we launch, I mean, this time we were pretty much done anyway. Mm-hmm. Next time I'll be on the next issue before we launch the issue 2. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, that's the plan. So we hope to have 3 issues out next year. Mm-hmm. So by this time next year, we've got issue 4 out. So, and they're all sort of 50 pages each. So it's not like they're small stories. They're, and you can read each one on its own, or you can read them in a series. That's the way that we're doing episodic content that you can enjoy individually every time.
Atlantean omnibus coming soon, folks.
So
thank
you, Rex. Thank you for having me on.
Yep.
Sorry, I've got to run off, but I've got to go and pick someone up. So thank you so much for having us on, and I'll leave you with Randy. Thanks, everyone in the chat. Cheers, guys. I'll see you tomorrow morning, Randy.
All right, man. Yep.
Cheers, Rex. Care. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Hopefully, I'll see him tomorrow, too.
Russ will be back with. Hopefully, you'll be there, too, Rex. Yeah. Tomorrow morning at Comics by Night, 5 a.m. Eastern.
What are we covering?
What are we covering? We're covering
Mobius.
Yes. Mobius Upon a Star. Mobius 1 from Epic Collection. Yeah.
Okay. Now, who came first? I forget. I always have to ask this. Is Kull? Is Conan the ancestor to Kull, or vice versa?
No, Kull is the ancestor to Conan by a couple hundred years.
So he's an Atlantean from Atlantis, right?
Yeah. Yep.
So Atlantis has not sunk. Is the story in Atlantis?
No. As the Shadow Kingdom opens up or begins, Kull has just become king of Valusia, which is a companion, an older kingdom to Atlantis. Atlantis is just a little across the bay and is a major hub at this point and growing. Kull originally came from Atlantis. He got chased off of that island due to some unforeseen circumstances. He ends up going in through the wilderness for a while. Kull does, and he mentions this in Shadow Kingdom, becomes a slave on a slave ship, becomes a mercenary, almost the same background as Conan, but not quite. And between Kull and Conan, Atlantis becomes very advanced, becomes very technologically forward. Then there's a major disaster that Kull's lineage survives, and then Conan is born in the northern countries in Hyboria. Many years, even centuries after Atlantis has sunk.
Now, I know Kull's public domain, but could you do a title like Kull, Return to Atlantis? Could you actually put Kull on the cover?
No.
No,
I wouldn't want to take that chance. We're trying to be extremely careful to stay away from anybody's trademarks.
Yeah, I never knew till this book that he was actually an Atlantean.
Oh yeah. Kull ends up becoming king of Atlantis through the Howard stories that we can't cover.
Oh, okay. So will you ever have him return to Atlantis, or are you going to avoid that?
Yeah, what I really want to show is Atlantis starting to advance real heavily. They end up taking their magic and turns it into science. Right during, I would think the start of that would be right during Kull's time on the
is the whole story of Atlantis in your mind, Randy? Is that fiction, or did it actually exist?
Oh no, I think it actually existed.
Yeah.
There's too many, so much of our legends, and you're going to get me going down a rabbit hole if you're not careful. Just to warn you, there's so many of these old legends that have a seed of truth to them, and even Plato was able to describe Atlantis from descendants of people that their word of mouth or whatever. It just our history is so very limited because our languages and writing have become so messed up from our topography that hardly nobody kept track of anything for the longest time except through vocal fairy tales and legends and stories and that kind of thing.
Oral tradition.
Oral traditions.
The barb was the keeper of like the genealogy of the tribe or something.
Exactly.
Pass that on, mentor that.
The farther along we go, the more scientists are starting to recognize and accept the fact that there's a little seed of truth in all of those old legends. They're starting to look a lot more seriously at cave paintings for actually being written documentations of events that actually happened. They're starting to take a lot that more seriously.
Do you think that there was an advance, a more of advanced, lost technology that's really talked about today, or is that just wishful
personally thinking? I have no doubt.
Yeah, really.
I think we're descendants many times over of a barely surviving civilization. They figure that Earth hits a disaster cycle every 12 to 13,000 years. And they're not sure exactly what happens. There's no written account. There's only guesses and legends. Everybody has a flood myth. Every culture has a flood myth. Every culture has visitations from somebody, either from outer space, underground, or whatever, that come forward to teach them how to be civilized, how to farm, how to make communities and that kind of thing. They all come from, and there's got to be a seed of truth to all of that, or all of the legends would,
one of the greatest discoveries in recent years, and you've probably seen it in Mexico, is the giant crystal caves. It's like 10,000 feet underground.
Yeah.
That's Jules Verne stuff. That's stuff I saw in the early 60s movie of Journey to the Center of the Earth type stuff.
Well,
the giant
a lot of that stuff is all legends and
but it really
fairy
exists,
tales that were all
Randy,
handed down.
Really exist.
Giants, I think really existed.
Well, I mean, and you got the reptilian men in the Atlantean, and there is a big story about a reptilian race that predates Homo sapien, being underground and everything. So,
well, there were legends back when Howard was writing that story. It's just that he put it out as a and mythologies. Everybody's the serpent in the Garden of Eden was a serpent creature.
Well,
that kind of thing.
I mean, it was a different time, but I mean, you had like the pulps, right?
Oh yeah,
that Howard wrote for.
Yeah,
and even Julius Schwartz over DC, he was into the pulps, right?
Oh, so
that really leached into comics, didn't it?
It was a springboard. Comics evolved out of the pulps, absolutely. But there's so many of those, so much of that writing, even for us, that has been ignored or pushed off or forgotten. You know, we've got a here about 30 minutes away from my house, we've got the writing studio of James Curwood that practically nobody knows ever existed. This guy was a prolific writer in the 1920s, is credited with creating Rin Tin Tin. Yeah. And he worked. He's the first author they say actually made $1 million. He's got a castle writing studio that he built over in Owasso that's still standing. They still have a Curwood festival for him today. It's just nobody knows who he is. Yeah. You know, and he's had over 123 or so movies done off of his works because he wrote so much. Nobody knows who he is today.
Isn't that amazing? You can be that famous and non-famous at the same time.
And he was bigger than Jack London at the time when he was out.
Is that still possible today with the internet, Randy, you think?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, especially with the way that a lot of these social platforms are becoming very hard-nosed about what they put on and off of the web.
What is your jam, Randy? What do you? I mean, I see a lot of different stuff on that spinner rack. I know you appreciate a wide variety. You've got crime back there. I know we've talked.
Crime does not pay, buddy. Yeah.
Crime does not pay. That was Levitt's, wasn't it? That was Levi L.E.V. Gleason, right?
Yes. Yep. Lev Gleason. Yep. He had an entire pantheon of superheroes that are in public domain.
Daredevil, and then he had the kids. What was the kid's name with Daredevil?
Little Wise Guys.
Little Wise Guys. Yeah. Yep. They eventually took over the title.
They sure
Daredevil
did.
Wasn't even in it, was it?
Nope. Not after a while. Yeah. Daredevil was kind of a one-dimensional character anyway. So and the kids were a kid gang. Kid gangs became hot back during that period because of the Bowery Boys and Little Rascals.
Boy Comics was another one.
Boy Comics, with Airboy.
Chick Stone doing a lot of the artwork. Yeah,
great stuff.
Chick Stone co-created the first Human Torch, didn't he? Or he drew him a lot.
Thinking Charles Burrow did Human Torch.
Oh, Charles Burrow. Yeah. There we go.
And Charles
I'm getting confused.
Did work in Crime Does Not Pay for quite a while. A lot of different things he ended up doing. Yeah, I love comics in general. Just anything I'm not as well versed as I'd like to be on like romance comics as some of the Western stuff.
Well, yeah. Do you have some romance comics in your
here collection? And there? Yeah.
Yep. Because I mean, you used to have a store at one point, right?
I did, yeah. But we didn't at that point. DC wasn't kicking out romance.
Were
books.
You doing Capital? Because it was Capital Comic. We ordered through Capital. When Diamond wasn't even a thing.
It wasn't even in existence. When I had my store, it was all Big Rapids, and the guy who ran our liaison was Jim Friel, who went on to work for Bud Plant for quite a few years.
Oh yeah, Bud Plant. I mean, you would see him in the kind of like Chuck Rosansky from Mile High Comics. They would run the ads.
Yeah.
And have a Bud Plant catalog that you could mail order from.
Absolutely.
Before the internet, folks, you had to mail order stuff.
Big fan of the Comics Buyer's Guide when it was out.
My mother was very supportive. You know, I probably ordered boards and bags through Bud Plant. You know, she's like, was very supportive. You know, knew I love comics and she's like, oh, look at these, what I found. They got boards and bags. My mother was the one that introduced me to boards and bags, and it was probably either through Mile High or Bud Plant, and then you also had a Heroes World catalog that Joe Kubert did a lot of artwork in.
Yeah.
And you could order toys and all kinds of books and different things through.
Yep.
That was cool.
The first mail order comic I ever did was through Richard Elf, ALF, up in Canada. And I had to buy it because I bought a copy of X-Men 95 from Richard Elf because I had picked up 94 and then I picked up 96 and Thunderbird wasn't in it. And I'm like, I gotta read this.
They killed him off, right?
That's the first book I had to order through the mail in order to get, because I couldn't find it on the local newsstand because X-Men became that hot that fast. The copies just ran off the shelves. Yeah.
There's Randy's Anniverse.
Yep.
From the 80s.
I inked that over Kirk Jarvinen's pencils. And Kirk went on to do some work for DC, did Aquaman Time and Tide miniseries with Peter David.
Anthropomorphic comics really became a big thing in the 80s.
Yeah, there were quite a lot of them. Yeah. But again, that's a combination of Turtles and Barks had such a big influence on a lot of us back during that period because Gold Key was still kicking out all of the Duck books, and you were still finding a lot of great Donald Duck and Uncle Scrooge, and that material was so well done that they did both versions of DuckTales are all off of Carl Barks stories, so
yeah,
off of those old Carl Barks comics.
Now, when did you discover like some of this great EC stuff?
I hated EC when I was in high school.
Did you really?
Yeah, because Marvel and DC were it for me. And I went to what they called a skill center around here to teach you different independent skills. They still have it now, only they call it a technology center. I went through the commercial art there, learned every device and material to do commercial art that the computer completely replaced during that period. But I was a big Marvel DC fan, and there was a couple kids coming up in the class underneath me through Skill Center. One of the kids' dad had a complete run of ECs, and they were huge EC fanatics. I told them they were crazy. Didn't like them at all. Didn't care for them, just old comics, And then those Russ Cockrum hardbound volumes came out, and I picked up Weird Science right off the bat, and I was hooked after that. I ended up getting the entire EC line, and my opinion completely changed. I ran into him years later and apologized to him because I remember all of the arguments we used to have and told him how right he was. Just the best of the best in EC.
How do you, do you think that indie comics will be what like you say, indies kind of a loose, or like Russ said, kind of a catch-all term in comics.
It is. Yep.
What's going to be the state of comics, say, in 5-10 years?
If I knew, I'd be working in that direction.
Yeah. Well, I think you are. You're doing your level best to come out with great things like the Full Atlantean and all these other titles.
My big thing right now is to try to find a way to get comics to the masses. There has to be a way to get comic books, physical or digital comics, out there to the masses for everyone to read. And it's just not happening at the moment because comics as an art form are always going to survive. I fully believe that because it's such a unique form of communication to be able to put words and pictures together. It's just a matter of figuring out how to get that work to the largest amount of people possible, the fastest anymore, because we're literally being bowled over by anime and manga right now. And not to say that a lot of that stuff isn't very good quality work, but there's such a market out there that we need to open up. And quite honestly, Dev Pilkey, working for Scholastic, has done more in the last 10-20 years to widen the comic readership than what Marvel and DC have ever bothered to do. And it's just irritating to me that they don't care about the long picture. They're so interested in putting the 15 variant covers out or putting out the book that they know is going to be slabbed or whatever and collected through the retailers. And they don't even care to keep the retailers alive, which to me I find highly offensive. That all they do is try to use the retailers to get as much money from them as they possibly can. And if they survive or not, they don't care. It's not their problem.
Yeah.
And now they don't even care to put out a quality product. They just put out their little pieces of propaganda, and they're not bothering to even try to entertain anybody. Well, for the most part, there are still great comics out there.
I think a large portion
they are very rare.
That might capture some comic readers is kind of your Barnes and Noble, where they collect all these things into trade paperbacks, and then they can kind of binge read. I know I bought a bunch through Barnes and Noble before it was destroyed by tornado here. It's since opened up in another location, but I've not been in there yet. But yeah, I think trade paperbacks are the way to go on some things.
I think so to an extent, but I think there's got to be a way to get inexpensive comics, not cheap comics, but inexpensive comics into the hands of kids, much like the old manga formats do. There's a chain of Five and Below stores. That's what they're called, Five and Below.
Oh yeah,
and they move manga through their big, nice little thick hardback books for $5. Yeah. Why Marvel and DC are not, well, I know why, because they don't care, but it just dismays me why they're not knocking on those doors and trying to get in.
Well, I remember
into that
going
market
back to Walden Books in the mall.
Oh yeah,
and they would have like the Doctor Strange Ditko stuff in like novel form, but with the pictures and stuff. And
I've got those. Yeah, the little trade or the regular size paperback. The pocketbook type paperback. And
often they would put, nice painted covers on there to really attract you. Sometimes they'd be novels and what was wild, like they did an Ultron Avengers story and then later put it in comic book format.
Oh, yeah. Written prose.
Yeah, it was all written up. So they used that as a story and put it into the Avengers comic. I don't know if that was because they were behind or what, but I mean, well, I used to love, I've mentioned it before, these little digests.
Like this. Yep. Absolutely.
I got, this is where I learned DC history was the reprints of stuff like that. That's wonderful. That's got Swamp Thing 1 through 10,
sweet,
which is a little bit taller, but and then you get the year's best. I could read Sergeant Rock, which I would not buy the floppy of, or Jonah Hex or stuff. I would get such a smattering of everything and would generally enjoy it.
Yeah.
And
I broke my teeth. I broke in comic reading on those old 100-page super spectaculars.
Yeah.
I used to collect all of those when they were out. I didn't care what the title was. I'd get it because there was so much comic stuff in there for 60, 75 cents. And a lot of those characters I'd never heard of or read a story of before. Here's an old Sandman gas mask Sandman story from who knows when, just stuck in the middle. Johnny Quick. Here's a great old Johnny Quick story in there. There's just some great odd characters that with like great stories 60, that you just love.
60 cent. One of those was the very first comic Legion of Superheroes that I bought, which had the old who was editor in chief, and he was Valiant and
Jim Shooter.
Jim Shooter. When he was like a junior in high school, he and wonderful stuff with Kurt
Swan.
Kurt Swan doing the drawing. Love that Legion period in the 60s that I was too young to have experienced, about the time I was being born. Shooter was already writing comics at age 12 and 13, but wonderful. Legion made me a Legion fan, I'm always a group book fan. It was George Perez's Avengers that brought me into comics. I thought, as long as it's going to cost me $0.25 plus tax, I might as well get more bang for my buck, and get as many characters as I could.
Yeah.
So I really like the Justice League of America or something like that were team books. I've always liked team books,
I was a huge Defenders fan.
Yeah, Defenders
for like the first 50, 60 issues. That was it for me. I just loved that team. It was amazing.
Early Keith Giffen artwork, where he looks very Kirby-esque in style. Of course, a lot of artists were told to draw like Kirby.
That was it. Yeah, with Giffen. Yeah.
Well, look at Conan's beginning with Barry Windsor Smith. That's very Kirby-esque. You had Rich Buckler that was told to draw like Kirby. I mean, there was a lot of artists, and in fact, Romita Senior, when he took over for Ditko on Spider-Man, they said draw like Ditko, and for those first 2 or 3 issues, he tried to draw like Ditko, and then eventually, kind of
evolve into his own stuff. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. They would never. Would they do that today? I mean, I don't think so. It's like, we like your stuff, but we want you to draw like this artist.
Yeah. Well, they don't want to at the big corporate houses anymore because of what happened with Image. They don't want to grow any superstars there. They don't try to make superstars. They just grab people off the street a lot of times, or if they're out of the country and can work for less, that's the guy who gets the job.
Imagine that, with Liefeld and Eric Larson and Todd McFarlane and all those other artists, when they left Marvel, that must have been a void. There must have been some hustle and juggling going around at that time.
I'm sure there was. Yeah.
Yeah, that probably hit Marvel pretty hard. I mean,
I'm sure it did.
Probably in the sales market, right? But
that too.
But don't you think that Image, at least in the short term, was good for comics? I mean, didn't it?
No,
I mean,
I don't. Not at all.
You think it was more the investor market?
Well, I love the philosophy of Image. I like the way that they work, in that they're able to bring in independent people to do their own stuff and own their own work. The problem in my opinion, with Image when they first started is they were doing very gratuitous, very sloppily done books. And a lot of the pros like Peter David and that were trying to get in there to tell them, you need a writer, you need an editor on these books. You have some nice concepts that could really go places.
Right.
If only, and they didn't care because they were making millions of dollars at the time. They told them all to go fly, that they were just doing books, and you see how that ended up in the long run. And in the meantime, while that was happening, while all these retailers were investing in Spawn and Savage Dragon and Shadowhawk, the black and white market was literally crippled and drying up.
Yeah.
And that's where all of your originality,
why did that all come about? Because the 80s were so unique with that, I really saw that when I went up to Chicago at those conventions, that the black and white boom.
Well, the Midwest was really big on that. I think mainly because of the bad winters, and a lot of these kids were stuck like us in the house for a while. So your imagination has to wander, and you don't have the 15,000 cable channels and the streaming services and the video games that you had today. You had to make all that stuff up yourself. And when you did that, you went off in wild places. You had animals talking to you, and you had crazy stories that you put in and all sorts of things. So the Midwest was really a big hub for the alternative and independent market for a long time. Then you had
but why did it cut loose in the 80s?
Image.
Was it the Ronald Reagan economy? What was it?
No, it was the fact that the retailers could make more money selling Youngblood and it was easier because it jumped off the shelf than trying to talk them into trying time travel extraterrestrials and Southern Nights. It's an easier concept to get into, even though the stories, in my opinion, were devoid of any real serious meat. I mean,
some of that is,
to me, Spawn spun its wheels for the first 100 issues and didn't tell anything but one story over and over and over again.
Yeah.
That's just my opinion. I don't have a very high opinion. The artwork, absolutely great, nice stuff. But the stories themselves, that's what keeps people coming back, is the entertainment level in general. Not how pretty you look, but how pretty you look and how well you're read.
Well, it's not just entertainment. You got to have good characters that you care about, right?
That's entertainment. That's entertainment.
And I've heard just not characterization, but personality. Once you can really convey a personality, like Wolverine, he's grumpy, blah, 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 blah. Beast is a little bit more jovial and jumping around and a lighter character.
Look at the hot books that were out during that period. Your Claremont was a great writer, even though he was spinning his wheels towards the end of his X-Men run. But you had Byrne and Austin up there. You had Wolfman and Perez doing Titans. Phenomenal books. Top-notch key superhero books. That's who knew at the time that was going to be the apex of the superhero genre. And everybody and their brother was copying them. I don't know if you remember all of these little side companies, Lightning Comics, Legends Comics, Legacy Comics. I mean, there were all sorts of little color books that were trying to spring up to meet that demand, because there was a demand out there for good superhero books. And Image just kind of mowed everybody out underneath with the stuff that they did, and that all the retailers were investing in cases and cases of Wildcats that didn't go anywhere. And in the meantime, Flair disappears and Lightning Comics disappear, and the 4 or 5 attempts at Thunder Agents come and go, and
yeah.
it was sad to see.
Thunder Agents really went through, like JC Comics, and really went from publisher to publisher. I know you might not know Thunder Bunny. It came out of Charlton.
Oh no, I know Thunder Bunny.
Thunder
very well.
Bunny went into like Apple Comics and a few other publishers. So it kind of like, they're over here. Oh, they're over here.
At the stuff. Look at the stuff Apple Comics was doing. Elf Quest, Thunder Bunny, Distant Soil by Colleen Durand. Just phenomenal stuff.
Distant Soil. Yeah, I got Colin. It was her birthday the other day.
All of these great books that hardly nobody talks about anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know with the Distant Soul, she had some of those sketch covers where they didn't ink it. It was just the pencils.
Sure.
Beautiful stuff. And that's what I would look for. Innovation in the comics. Oh, that's never been done before. The thing about Image is they had the lens flare, they had the out of focus shot, early digital coloring.
Right.
Marvel and DC weren't on the bandwagon with that yet. And that's what kind of helped as well. For them to stand apart and look different. But you read some of that early stuff, you don't even know what's going on. It's some of it.
Well, a lot of times they went pin up story in through like 3 panels next to it.
Yeah.
For a page, and that's no way they needed writers, they needed editors up there to kind of tell them, look, you got nice characters here, but nobody's going to care about them in 20, 30 years unless you tell some memorable stories.
He was doing black and white, and Dale Keown was doing Pit later, and went to full bleed. But I mean, and there was some stuff toward the end in Image where it was more solid on the writing, I think. But but by then the damage had been done, and it was kind of like a tidal wave, and they just didn't survive.
Well, the retailers got bowled over by the amount of product that they suddenly got flooded with from Image. And Image, they were just out to make money.
Well, extremely light on their distribution. That's what hurt them.
That hurt them. That hurt the retailers as well, really bad, and it really put a bad taste in their mouth for any independents in general. And then it got to the point where that nobody wanted to invest in a new book coming out. How do I know your book's going to be the next Turtles when you'll be real lucky to see issue 2? Yeah. That became the big motto. I retailed for a good 10, 15 years. So I know right during that time frame. So I know what they had to go through.
That's kind of the model anyway, right? People generally invest heavily in an issue 1, but then issue 2, the numbers go down. They don't order as much, even though
a lot of that too comes from 1, the retailer not being able to trust the product, and for 2, once Diamond springs up and Capital springs up, everybody's having to order 3 months in advance, and they don't know how these books are going to run.
Yeah.
And if you've got a monthly title, you're on issue 4 before you see what your numbers are.
But the most frustrating thing, I never dealt with Diamond, but Capital before them, we'll give you store credit. If you're small, if you're not Apple Comics in New York, you're not going to get you don't get all your order. And you're forever back ordering stuff, and you may or may not get it.
Well, we were constantly running into that with Diamond especially once they became the only game in town. I had retailers coming up to me at shows going, I ordered 5 of your book and I only got 2. How come you're shorting Diamond?
Well, one of the best things I think
why would we short Diamond?
Was the pandemic a few years ago, and Diamond was coming out, and if things hadn't had an uptick where they did, it's like, we're not going to be able to pay some people, and we saw how that fell apart. Where we're going with Penguin, or we're going with some other distributor besides Diamond.
Yeah, that really pointed out the flaws in the system
and how weak it was.
Well, Diamond had been weak for decades there. The sad thing with Diamond, again, my opinion, or I'm sure history will tell me out. They never bothered to try to grow the market. Yeah, never. Yeah. And that was their job.
Well, they had a monopoly.
Well, they did. They didn't care.
Yeah.
As long as they made money, they didn't care. Who cared if a retailer went out of business? We just took that product and moved it over to the next guy and ordered less next time from the publisher, which is ridiculous.
I think the average time for a comic book store, although I go to one over in Jackson, Tennessee, where my friend is, that's been there for over 30 years.
Oh, yeah.
It was a couple. when he died, she took it over and she's been
Yep.
running it ever since. But that's kind of not the norm. The norm is 2 years and you're out of business.
If you're lucky, yeah.
If you're lucky, right?
Yep. Well, we've been real fortunate in this area. We've got a couple of stores. There's 2 in Saginaw. There's 2 in Flint. There's only about a half a dozen left down in the Detroit area that are like that have been around for 30, 40 years.
Yeah.
With people that have either passed it on or sold the business over to the next owner, and they've got enough appreciation for comics to keep it running.
On a scale to 1 to 100, what do you think?
At one time, Detroit had 40, 50 stores, Wow. Now they're lucky if they have 6.
Yeah. I mean, there's nationwide, there's only about maybe 3,000 something, maybe.
Nobody wants to say what the number is because nobody wants anybody to know how low it is.
Yeah. So on a scale to 1 to 100, what do you think the health of the patient is?
Oh, I think comics are always going to survive. I'm not sure if the retail market's going to survive. I'm not sure if the retailers are going to make it for very much longer. It's amazing, and it's a tribute to every retailer out there who's lasted 5 years or more, to their tenacity and their ability to be able to survive and pay their rent, especially now, especially with the quality of product that's out there. Because the stuff coming out from the crowdfunding books are incredibly low numbers, but these creators, we don't need a whole lot of. We want a whole lot of readers. We don't need a whole lot of readers in order to make a living.
Just find that core group.
Yes, we just need that core group. Where these retailers out there, they have to depend on people coming in every Wednesday. And sometimes Marvel and DC would cater to that crowd, and sometimes they wouldn't. Here comes the latest new Batman book that's got 25 variant covers. How do you like that?
When I go into my local comic book store, I see full variants. I see reprints of key issues, the facsimile issues, like I say, either full or not full. I also see a lot of Disney. At first they said we'll keep Marvel separate from Disney. Now I'm seeing Donald Duck Wolverine covers and stuff like that.
Yep.
So, and they're cool. I've actually picked up 1 or 2 of them, like Avengers #1 with Disney characters. But it's a gimmick for the most part.
Do you see the Duck Avenger books that IDW kicked out?
Duck Avengers.
Old Italian. They were graphic novels over.
No, I haven't seen those.
They translated. Well, they're not around anymore because IDW doesn't have that license. But they printed at least 3 or 4 Duck Avengers book as Donald Duck as a superhero. Brilliant stuff.
Well,
very crazy material.
If I saw it, I'd probably be intrigued. I'm surprised IDW is still in business because they were like 60 something million in debt.
That's a whole nother story. Yeah. Same thing with Valiant. It's amazing. A lot of them guys are still around.
Well, a lot of people thought, really, when you look at the board meeting and you look at the, and you talk about the health of the publishing on the DC side and the Marvel side, and then of course they've changed hands, especially DC Comics has changed hands, ownership. It's a wonder that they haven't met and said, this is only making us $1 billion a year. That's nothing, or less than just in the millions. That's not a lot to a board meeting.
No, it's not. The thing with the corporate comics, with Marvel and DC especially, is that they are backed up by Disney and Warner Brothers, and Disney and Warner Brothers have a really funny way of economics. And they figure that keeping the comics out there is actually essential in order to build more icons and more recognizable brands, so they can take hits every once in a while. But the big thing with them too is they've trimmed their costs so much. The page rates are almost at the lowest point, and when you look at the rate of inflation, than they've ever been. Period. And these guys, the talent, so-called talent that are working on these books, are just mistreated like you wouldn't believe. The editors up there, and this is something too. I do commercial artwork on the side. I did more sequential. I made more money doing sequential artwork for 2 local clients here in the Flint area than what I know Heather Antos pulled down when she was running as editor at Marvel.
Wow.
That says a lot, and they should be ashamed of themselves, not for not paying Heather Antos, but for the way that they treat their editor.
Are comics on life support?
Corporate comics. are literally on the threads of the corporate bookkeepers. And tomorrow they could shut the books and discontinue regular comics. And these retailers that have been around, that have depended upon Marvel and DC to make product every week for them, are going to be hung out to dry. And it wouldn't surprise me if that day's coming, and who knows when it'll be here, but Diamond sure will cover that up and try to sell the latest toy, the latest game, the latest statue, the latest anything but an actual comic to try to stay afloat. Penguin and Random House have come in and they're doing their distribution as well, but they're not dependent upon the comic market to make money. Right. They're doing it mainly to jab at Diamond and to make a little side change. But tomorrow, you never know. Tomorrow, Archie might wake up and go, hey, we need to try a digest about half the size as the 250 pages or so that we're printing now. These big, thick things.
Well, Archie did get into the superhero thing with the Zen, the Intergalactic Ninja, had turtles.
They had turtles
Red
and Sonic.
Circle MLJ characters.
Yeah, but
there for a while.
Look at the trouble that they had with Sonic. Just crazy, insane. They could do a book half of the size, charge half as much for it, stick that out in the grocery stores, and have really good stories in it. This issue of Jughead, this Jughead superhero special, I had to buy because the first story on the inside, you look at the credits page, if that'll come through.
Yeah.
You're looking at who is it? Tom DeFalco. You're looking at Ron Friends.
Yeah.
You're looking at Al Milgrom. All doing Archie superhero stories with the Jughead character involved in it. With Captain Hamburger or whatever his name is involved in it. Archie, the 20 pages in the front of this book.
Is that new stuff or is that the old stuff from the 60s?
Oh, this is brand new. This is brand
new
material. Yep. Okay. The story in the front, you got about 20 pages in the front that looks like it's a cartoon Archie because they can't sell the realistic looking Archie.
Yeah.
In comics. They just can't do it. The Mark Waid comics all flopped real bad. But Archie's tried everything. I mean, they keep trying to throw stuff at the wall all the time and good for them. And they've had Sonic Digest. I don't ever remember seeing a Turtles Digest when they had that license, but they sure should have done it. And they had the Marvel license for a year and a half. I wish I was their editor on that line because I would have made I would have made a lot more entertaining books than they kicked out.
Well, now, I remember
you pick up those old digests that they did with Marvel. They kicked one out every time there was a Marvel movie, which is what Marvel should have done and never did. Black Panther comes out. Here's a bunch of Black Panther reprints.
Right.
But the thing is the first half of the book are all these old classic Jack Kirby, John Buscema Avengers stories. And then the last half of the book are all Marvel adventure stories with artwork that was made to be put on the slick white paper instead of the newsprint paper. And they look like a muddy mess.
Yeah.
And just terrible, terrible looking stuff when they ought to be trying to appeal to the mom and pop that actually buy these books for their kids and grandkids, in order to keep their numbers up. And they never bothered to do that. You just had half of the book that was great stuff and the other half of the book that was a muddy mess. And you could literally see the spine. You could look at the pages because the new stuff had black borders on it.
In there,
the last
Randy,
half of the book was black.
I'll try
front of the
grab
book was printed in white.
It's in my other room, but it's got, we talked about Thunder Bunny. Thunder Bunny was in one of those Archie. I'll grab that
they probably had a crossover at one time or another. Yeah.
Yeah.
I
thought it was exciting time, and spinner racks were still around at that time at the Kroger grocery store. I know because I bought them off the rack.
They've had Archie crossover with Kiss. They've had him crossover with Punisher. They've had a Archie
Predator,
Living Dead.
Alien.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
everything they possibly could. Yeah.
Yeah. They've been doing, and they got their own show, Riverdale. I never watched it, but I mean,
that's that realistic Archie again.
Yeah. They've been going
they can put it on
realistic
CW
with Archie.
Yeah.
Archie started in the late 30s in Pep Comics. And has been popular ever since.
Well, it's been printed ever since. Yeah.
Printed ever since. Yeah. Well, I think it's retained its, maybe. Yeah. Up and down.
Archie as a company.
Al Hartley brought,
Yeah.
was even doing Archie into Spire Comics, the Christian comic brand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The thing I think that's been keeping Archie afloat though are those digests, and they don't want anybody to know the numbers that they're moving.
Yeah.
Because that's keeping the company, that has been keeping the company afloat. That and maybe
I love the digest,
Oh, I do too. Absolutely do.
Yeah, it's a good format,
Yep.
Even
nobody does enough of them anymore. Yeah.
Yeah. Are they still doing those on newsprint, by the way?
The Archie digest, absolutely. Yeah.
Are they? Okay. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But it's very hard to find a printer that does that type of printing anymore.
Archie knows one.
Well, Archie knows one. Yeah.
They've been using them for a while. The problem with newsprint printers is that there's less and less newspapers coming out all the time. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of those printers are going out, or they're merging or whatever. When I was doing Flint Comics and Entertainment, that was printed on newsprint. And I had a local guy. I first started with a printer broker who used a local guy that I knew I used to work for a political paper, and I used to talk to the guy for a long time. But they ended up buying out 2 or 3 of the large web presses here in the state. There used to be a good half dozen of them. Now I think there's only 1 or 2 that are left doing web press newsprint stuff. And newsprint's getting harder and harder to find because the demand for it has lessened so much. And since the bug, the prices on newsprint just jumped through the roof.
Well, just Sparta, Illinois, right? I mean, I used to work for World Color, and they used to do the Marvel books, and But I mean, Sparta did all that printing for a bunch of the big 2 there, didn't they?
Sure. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they were the hub for a long time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I guess. Do you think the momentum is with the independents now in the independent market? Is it through this crowdfunding?
Honestly, I think the momentum right now is with manga.
Okay. Now we got to break that. We got to break that if we want Western comics to live again, right?
We absolutely do. Yep. But like I said, right now, if Scholastic were to step up, if Random House were to step up, Simon & Schuster could step up and do their own line of inexpensive newsprint black and white comics. If they wanted to, they would grow this market. And somebody out there is looking at the long term. It's one of these publishers are gonna come up with a format. They're gonna kick it out in mass, and it'll catch on and be really big. It's just a matter of time. Or somebody will figure out how to move digital comics and actually make money at it.
Yeah.
But comics aren't gonna die. They're not gonna die. It's just the device or the format that we trade comics with is slowly going away. I do think you're seeing the demise of the 32-page book, and personally I think it's long overdue. Mm-hmm. But I would love to see a return of the same size and format of the 64 or the 100-page super spectaculars. That would be nice to see.
Yeah. Well,
or the same format in black and white and thick. Yeah.
One of the reasons they could churn those out is most of it was reprint material.
Yeah, but there's a lot of material out there waiting to be reprinted, and they're just too afraid to do it. And
I did want to mention to you when you mentioned those earlier, because one of mine and I was Legion of Superheroes that I talked about. One of the books I discovered had that they would have the heads down below of who was in there, Kid Eternity or Captain Midnight or not Captain Midnight.
Dr. Midnight.
Dr. Midnight. Yeah. Yep. They had a unpublished Dr. Midnight story in one of those in the Bronze Age from 1942 that was never published. And
Golden Age.
The only way you can find that story is in that particular issue, that 60-cent pager, or the 60 center. Yeah. A big 100-pager.
That came from somebody snooping through drawers and either finding an old script or finding the artwork already done. They didn't have any cost to deal with that. They just put it in there. I think they reprinted they printed an old 7 Soldiers of Victory story like that too. They either had all of the artwork for it and it was sitting in a drawer somewhere for decades.
I didn't know about that one. I'm going to have to look that one up.
I could be wrong, but I seem to remember it.
Mm-hmm. Like that was in they came out in Leading Comics with early Jack Kirby artwork, right?
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, when you talk about the numbers today, like Amazing Spider-Man doing 60,000, that's cancellation back in the 80s.
Yeah,
That's cancellation numbers.
absolutely.
Because I mean, I looked up just like one of those DC Comics Presents, nothing special about the issue whatsoever, not even a top tier artist on it. And it was doing 187,000 on the print run in
Absolutely.
like 87.
Yeah, but they had full newsprint or newsstand distribution back then in the spinner
Right.
racks.
Yeah, but
And
it was starting.
they would
It
move
was
a lot of
starting to
product.
wane by then. I mean,
Right,
it
but
went
they were
out
still
very
moving a
quickly.
lot of product.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. They were still coming out with a lot of product. Absolutely. Yeah.
Remember that
And-
that whole era that Marvel just went reprint crazy? That's when I was really getting into reading comics. There were 2 continuity lines for Spider-Man, the Avengers, Fantastic Four, because you had Marvel's Greatest Comics, Marvel Tales, Marvel Triple Action, all of these
Double
other
Action.
great,
Yeah.
all of these great books coming out. And it didn't matter if you right off the bat didn't understand where the continuity was. You could still put it together or read the same title, read every Marvel Tales. There's a Spider-Man continuity that's completely different from Marvel Team Up. That's almost completely different from Amazing Spider-Man.
Old Submariner stories,
that's the way to go.
Silver Surfer stories, and then that was a way very cheaply to catch up on the classics that were a decade previous.
And they sold.
60s.
And they sold just like Dan Didio and his confusion over the facsimile copies.
Yeah.
If they were to sit there and actually do a reprint book like that with a bunch of the character stories in it, it always astonished me. Remember Wednesday Comics? And we might have had this discussion before, but DC kicked out a newspaper they were calling Wednesday Comics for a while. Why they ever stopped that is Dan Didio told me that they stopped it because retailers were complaining that the sun was drenching the newsprint too much. And I'm like, well, tell them not to put it in the sun. That's kind of silly.
Yeah.
Put it in a bag,
really.
put it in a box.
That would do to any
put it
comic,
after
really.
a week. Exactly.
Yeah.
But for them to have to stop that format, I thought was a big travesty because they had a beautiful newspaper with beautiful artwork and good
selling?
Solid stories.
Was it selling?
Didio said it was selling real well.
Really? Okay.
Well,
I know they combined that all into a hardback. I've got it.
Well, that was their main purpose in doing Wednesday Comics in the first place. That was their whole intent, was to do that coffee table book. But their real intent should have been to keep that paper out and have it kick out every week, because you might not have had an audience for it in 6 weeks or 2 months or whatever, but you give it a half a year, you give it a year. You put quality stories in it and people will start begging for it.
Well, you had Joe Kubert drawing in it. You had
all the best.
All
top-notch people. Kyle Baker doing Hawkman. You had Didio was writing Metal Men in there with Jose Garcia Lopez artwork.
Oh, wow.
Every character. We went through a couple of issues of Wednesday Comics on the podcast. Every issue was prime. Every page was just pretty. And they were big too. They folded out into large size tabloid, like the old Sunday funnies used to be back in the 30s. And that was such a great format, such a great opportunity for them. And they just swept it under the rug and just put out a coffee table book and shrugged their shoulders. And
Tales of Unexpected, Ghost.
Oh yeah.
Titles like that. Did like Luis Dominguez and other artists like that, and of course Marvel had their horror books, because I mean there was a horror thrust there in the early 70s because of the change in the comics code, right?
Well, see, that was the thing. I got my parents to allow me to buy superhero books, so suddenly I'm bringing home Ghost Rider and Son of Satan.
Yeah, Son of Satan, that's a good one. To piss your parents off with.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Marvel at that point had like 12 different versions of the devil, all in there. Mephisto, Satan, Lucifer, whoever else.
Daughter of Satan,
Beelzebub.
Satana.
All sorts of just supernatural. I was reading all of that stuff back then, just loving it.
Okay, all right, yeah. Val Merrick was one that I caught on to very early. He was in that very first Marvel Curtis magazine that came out. Vampire Tales, and Dick Gargiano did some artwork in that. He did a story in that.
A lot of people went through those books. Yeah.
Yeah, and I
Great
always
stuff.
liked the Incredible Hulk magazine, the
Rampaging Hulk. Yeah.
and then it became the Hulk, just the Hulk,
Yep.
but magazine. But you got like Joe Jusko covers sometimes, or
Great stuff.
Yeah, just beautiful painted covers.
Bob Larkin.
Yeah.
Did a lot of that.
Yeah.
What a great set of stories too, all set in the Silver Age, where the Avengers was the old gold shell head Iron Man, and the Wasp had a point on the top of her head.
Well, that's what
all sorts of
intrigued
great
me.
stuff.
That's what intrigued me about Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles was their gray toning, which was similar to those Rampaging Hulks that had gray toning.
Yeah.
Beautiful stuff. I mean, that's what set it apart, I think, from the other black and whites of the 80s, is they had that gray toning. I still don't know how they did that, but it was
that's what they call duo shade board.
There was a board. Now that was liquid, right?
There was, it was a board that had light blue lines printed on it that had a special chemical that would react to another chemical when it was painted on the board. Yeah. And you had two different types of chemicals, one that was light and you'd get like one set of lines, and one chemical that was harsh that would give you a double set of lines. And so they had literally two gray tones that they could go through and paint over top of their black and white artwork.
Yeah. Well, I think
sometimes they were lines, sometimes they were dots. Most of the time they were lines, though. Yeah.
Yeah, I love black and white stuff, but I also like some gray toning, and I know gray tone covers were a thing back in the day. They were kind of dying out in the Bronze Age, but there's like partial gray tone covers as well.
There's a whole era back during the 70s and 80s where they were using Zipatone a lot. That was like a clear plastic, almost a sticky saran wrap that you can lay down on the art and cut around. Yeah. And I learned how to use all that material at the skill center, and then 2 clicks on Photoshop and you get the same effect.
Was it toxic? Omar Glitch says it was toxic, though.
Yeah, the chemicals were carcinogens. Yeah, for duo shade board.
That's almost like the Radium girls, where they licked the brushes and did the watches with the glow in the dark.
They didn't know any better. And nowadays it's next to impossible to find any of that board, let alone the chemicals. Yeah. But you'd have to ingest the chemical in order for it to really be bad for you. It used to have a scent to it, kind of a musty smell to it, that you just wash your hands and wash it off.
Can you all bring up examples of some of the stuff you're talking about? Well, I know on the gray toning covers of GI Combat, that's part of the and then also the early Sea Devils were gray tone. That was at Jack Adler. He was like the vice president of production over at DC Comics. A little known name, very rare on any covers. He did a couple of those CC Beck covers. If you also photo, backgrounds. Yeah. He kind of did collage type stuff like that.
Shazam number 3 magazine, or number 5 had a cover like that. Yeah.
Plot magazine with Basil Wolvington. He did at least one of those covers there. He was a colorist over there. He actually, I'm told, worked on the printing part of the Action Comics #1. It's sad. Pull it up, he says. Putting us on the spot. I guess Randy's pulling something up.
Yeah, I'm looking.
What are you asking? Are you talking about the duotone? Are you talking about the zipatone? What are you wanting us to show you examples of?
If I had my stuff next, I've played with duo shade in a couple of stories.
Oh yeah,
but
back in the day, back in the 80s.
Back in the day. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's try this.
Did you ever do anything like that with the Aniverse?
I did a story in Caliber Presents that had Aniverse characters in it that I overused duo shade on quite extensively. It was pretty crazy. But yeah, you learn by overdoing on that stuff. Yeah, let me see if this will pull up here.
While you're doing that, I'll go over to eBay and I'll try and look up some right
here. I've got I got a gray tone picture I can share here. Nope, not with that. Share screen.
I want to see Randy's art. Omar Glitch says.
Here is.
You want to see your artwork?
Here's Eastman and Laird doing a Donatello on Duo Shade board.
Oh, was that one of the micro series, like the single issue?
Yeah. This is one of the single issue books. You can see the double. Yeah. If you can see my pointer, you can see the two different shades here: the lighter shade and the darker shade that almost looks like cross hatching.
Yeah,
that's all Kirby right there, isn't it? Look at that heavy Kirby influence.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah. It looks like Black Boat's underwings.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Very my Kirby stuff. I don't think I have any black and white material handy. I'd have to do a little digging for it because
that's
it's
awesome.
been a while.
I thought it was funny. They would say micro series and it would be a one shot.
Yeah.
On the turtles.
Yep.
That's an awesome image. I love that.
Let's see what I got here on the rack. If I've got any of my old stuff. Nope, that doesn't have any dual shade in it.
Look, he just bends those comics. He doesn't care.
Here we go.
Comics are to be read. Is that a tomahawk?
This is an old issue of Power Comics.
Oh, Power Comics #1. Yeah, I bought that.
Power Comics #1 with the misprinted cover on the bottom. They misdirected the printer, so they ended up having a white band on the bottom. This has got artwork by this weird guy named Dave Sim in it.
Oh yeah,
you know, it's got
Pre-Cerebus artwork.
Yeah, T. Casey Brennan. Jim Friel's got a story. The guy that I was talking about earlier that was running Big Rapids Comics. He was in it. Here's some samples of Zipatone work. This is what a lot of the 70s were for me. All of this gray tone here. The guy's hands. All that background is a Zipatone screen that they went through and cut out the white lightning effects on. It was just
like a graduated screen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any duo shade samples
be like
in here.
Cut and paste. I see you got a Dead World back there.
I do.
Soltac, that's through Arrow Comics.
It is. Yep. Mm-hmm. This has got a Night Witch story in it. Here it is, a Boy in His Aardvark by Dave Sim and T. Casey Brennan. This is Dave Sim artwork here.
Yep.
And lettering, I think, long before Cerebus come. That's a very early.
Vimbat that just launched. That's on Fund My Comic, Apex Comics. Actually has a wraparound cover that he based off that Power Comics #1 wraparound cover.
Oh, did he? Awesome. Yeah. Sweet stuff.
Now, does your Hey Kids Comics, does it have like Superman, Archie on the header, or is it just words? Okay, mine says
that's the really rare one. I don't have that.
Really? I've got one of those. Is it rare?
Yeah, that's super rare. That's the one everybody wants. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I have that.
Well, here's the Realm. That's Guy Davis. Realm.
Yeah.
This is Guy Davis artwork here. This is how he used to draw.
Oh, that's issue. Is that issue 2? I don't have that one.
This is issue. Issue 2.
Yeah.
You go through and you look at like Baker Street or
yeah. I've got some Realm.
Some of the old Hellboys.
Yeah.
Doesn't look like that at all anymore.
Yeah.
Here's Dead World. I didn't have anything to do with this book except for I was art director at the time, and I used to be the letters page commentator. I used to be King Zombie in the letters pages. Used to be able to yell at everybody. This is Vince Locke artwork. Real early stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, real early stuff.
Yeah.
And he's got such a look at that.
Well, I mean, it was from independents like this that professionals, did like The Privateers. I don't know if you've seen that. That's like early Tom Grummett artwork.
Yeah.
Ron Lim started out with some of those independents. Look at him bend those things. Man, he's killing me. He's absolutely killing me, folks.
These are reading copies. I don't collect
reading copies. My God.
Yeah. There's Tales from the Aniverse. Let's see what's in that. That might actually have some duo shade in it. Oh, this is fun. Here is Vince Locke drawing one of my characters called Pajan.
Okay.
There you are. I got a story by Guy Davis, too. We're going to print that in the omnibus. Here's artwork by Jeff Lafferty, who some people may know. Just fantastic stuff.
Yeah.
Great material. Always fun. Great negative space.
You know, there. I mean, black and white comics are never going to go away, Randy, for noir and, you know.
I think that's I think that's hand done. That's Jason Moore inks over top of my pencils.
Mm-hmm.
This has got a Kirk Jarvinen cover on it too, by the way, with gore. It's a little mercenary zebra corn.
A zebra corn.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't have that particular issue, but I do have some Aniverse stuff. Yeah.
That Tales 2 second volume, that's got a Sue Van Camp painted cover of Mischievous on it.
Oh.
There. We had a cover gallery, or not a cover gallery, but a character gallery inside this book with all sorts of people drawn. There's Guy Davis in a more recent style doing Mischievous. Right next to over here, that's Tim Vigil.
Oh, really? Okay.
Artwork, yeah.
Great. Yeah, if I mention Greater Mercury or Silver Wolf, you know who I'm talking about.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Mark Bloodworth, who did Night Streets. Right there.
I mean, it's amazing. I remember reading one of the letters page. I don't know if it's in Greater Mercury, probably Greater Mercury. It could have been Silver Wolf, though. They said, yeah, this book is coming out and it's going to have a print run of 350 issues. Yeah. This stuff is rare. That's why I buy it up on eBay.
Well, back when we were doing newsprint like this, you had to print thousands anyway.
Yeah.
So, and there were no print on demand back during that time. So a lot of this is Jason Moore artwork. He just inked a piece for Ripaverse not too long ago.
And how big part of running ads help pay for the comic book printing and everything?
None for us.
Huh?
None for us.
Oh, is that an ash can there?
Oh, yeah, I did an ash can of Spank at the scene from the club. I used to take back when I was first learning, let's say, female anatomy. And guys, here's a hint for you: if you ever want to learn how to draw proper female anatomy, find a strip club where you can take a sketchbook. And
there you go.
That's as close to female superhero proportions as you're ever going to find. Did rough sketches. Well, probably can't show that. There's a lot of a lot of artistic renditions here of breasts. Yeah. Let me find one that's got everybody covered here. That's pretty covered.
Yeah.
That I did.
I must confess, I've never been to a strip club.
See, I didn't go either until Tim Vigil. It's all his fault.
Yeah. Okay.
Tim Vigil come into town and
well, I've got a chance to talk to his brother Joe, but I've never talked to Tim.
Oh, Tim's a great guy. Fantastic. Yeah. Oh,
is that Action Comics #1 reprint?
Yeah, one of my favorite covers of all time.
I have that.
Look at how great that cover is.
Yeah, that's one of those short-lived things like Beware the Creeper.
Oh, yeah.
Hawk and Dove, they kind of got canceled around like 1968, right?
Yeah. Well, Bomba the Jungle Boy was a big property for a very short period of time.
Hey, wait, that was a TV show too, right?
It was. Yeah.
Back in the 50s.
And a series of books, and Yep.
You know what I've been watching? I've been watching Laramie, Tall Man, The Deputy, old westerns like that you probably grew up watching.
Oh yeah. Yep.
Yeah. There's one of your Marvel collector's item reprint books.
Yeah, I love those old reprint books. You find these at shows.
It's amazing. It's amazing, Randy, how quickly Marvel started. Oh, that's got Fantastic Four #13, the first appearance of Watcher and the Red Ghost and its Super Apes.
Yep.
Yeah. It's amazing that how quickly Marvel started reprinting some of their fairly recently printed books.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, want to be a reprint editor up there and teach
I mean,
these.
when they first started out, DC was actually handling Marvel's distribution. They could only come out with 8 different titles a month.
Well, you know, there's
Isn't it? Am I correct about that?
I don't think it was DC itself, but the distribution company, let's politely say they were family owned.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They were corporate family.
I should probably talk to you about what
they only gave Marvel so many spaces. So that's why you had Strange Tales, Tales to Astonish, Tales of Suspense, where half of the book was Iron Man, the other half was Captain America, because they only had so many books that they could print and so many more characters that they wanted to introduce to people. So they just they put 2 characters in a book.
And like Tales of Suspense, that's what they used for the panel work in like all the 66 cartoons for Captain America. Yeah.
There's
CC Beck did that, didn't he?
Yes, he did.
Show that again. I think I've got all. They only came out with 3 issues, didn't they?
Yeah, there's only 3. The third one's rough to find.
Yeah. I've got all 3 of those. I don't remember
that's got a plastic man in it. There's a fat man. There's all sorts of.
It's got Plastic Man in it, really?
A version of Plastic Man.
Okay, now what issue is that?
That's number 3.
Have you seen the Captain Marvel that splits and
yeah, I got a copy of it around. I got a couple copies of that around here somewhere.
Breaks up into parts, different parts. Yeah.
Have you seen Dynamite Joe, the blast crazy Marine?
Yeah. Harvey Comics. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Great stuff. Great stuff.
Yeah.
I love all that stuff. Yeah. I do. I've done, I think, at least one whole episode where I did nothing but go through the rack here and dug out all this old material. I've got copies of Captain Marvel Family and Wiz comics just sitting in the rack, and they're all banged up and they're all reading copies. It's nothing you want to slab, but
thank you, Homer. That reminded me. Yeah, I wanted to ask him about the Mafia. Was the Mafia ever involved in comics that you know?
That's the family. That's the family.
The family.
Oh yeah.
Was the family ever involved in the?
Yes and no.
Distribution and whatnot. Yeah.
There was a time when there was a lot of money in comics.
Yeah.
It was a great way to launder funds as well.
Okay.
So,
yeah.
I don't think anybody's really sat down and done a book on it, but the distribution field, the Comic Code Authority, Archie, a lot of that was all, real suspicious stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, they had a stranglehold on distribution for a while, but because of that, this is the cool thing that I love about comics history, because you would get these roadblocks like right now, or there for the longest time, we had Diamond as a major roadblock. All of a sudden the independents spring up, all of a sudden crowdfunding springs up, whenever there's a big problem when it comes to this art form, somebody in the art form finds a workaround. That's why I'm saying that sooner or later, somebody's going to figure out how to mass produce comics again for the masses, and it's gonna happen. And I hope I'm around to see it happen, and I hope that I'm a part of it.
Now here's your classic gray tone cover that's done by Jack Adler back in the day.
Yeah,
he kind of brought that into comics, and then the photo collage type stuff, from what I understand. Usually in GI Combat, but some of these early DC books like Green Lantern.
Everybody was playing around back then and doing different things. There was a photo cover back with Fawcett, with a couple of photo covers with Captain Marvel way back when. That had those in it. You'd see them pop up every once in a while.
Here's one that actually I have, Our Fighting Forces number 71. This one's graded, and I guess I don't know if that's like.
All we're seeing now is grinding here. Yeah, there we are. Oh yeah, look at that.
Yeah.
Great stuff.
All gray tone. Yeah.
Yep.
And some of these had Lichtenstein actually took some and did the gallery paintings, right?
He didn't take them. He swiped them. Yeah.
Yeah, he swiped them straight out of the books. Yeah. And
he owes Russ Heath and Irv Norvik and a few other people some good royalties that he'll never pay. or at least
what's funny is Irv Nervik did like some of the early war stuff, and I'm finding that out that but when I first discovered his name on a monthly basis, it was Web of Spider-Man in the 80s.
Okay, yeah.
But I didn't realize that he went all the way back to the 50s at least.
Oh yeah, he had a long run on Batman for years before he passed. Him and Don Newton both just beautiful stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, great it's material. Amazing. We didn't know how good we had it in the 50s.
Oh yeah,
when it was more creator centric. Yeah, if you get it out and you show it, you have to put it up.
That's true.
That's what Randy's doing now.
Beanie and Cecil.
Oh, Beanie and Cecil. Yeah. Now, is that a Dale?
Yeah, it's an old four color.
4-color. Yeah. I mean, the longest running book, really.
Yeah.
I've got the very last issue of that. I think the very first was a Dick Tracy in the mid 30s, Randy, and it was no numbered. That's
number 635.
Yeah. Now let me see the back of it. Let me see the back. Okay. Now see, there's some of the early variants. See, that's got the strip on the back, but they also had a version where it had an ad on the back.
Okay.
So those on those 4 colors, you can find them both ways.
Yeah.
With an ad on the back or another strip on the back. Mm-hmm. And those were early variants. Old 4-color.
Who's this? Alpha Team Omega. By who's this? Craig? Johnny Craig?
You'll have to show it to me before I know what you're talking about.
You might have never seen this. This is all newsprint printed. This is
Johnny
one of the
Craig
books.
Worked for EC Comics.
It might not be Johnny. It doesn't say the credit on this is so old.
I have that
so
issue.
Small.
Yeah, and it's newsprint.
Yeah.
I actually have
it's all
that.
newsprint. Alpha Team Omega right there.
Now, how many people? You
much
and
better,
me are the only people that have that.
Much better
don't
cover
tell
on
me
the back.
That's Mike Grell, right?
Is that Grell?
Is it Mike Grell? Looks Mike Grell.
I'm gonna have to switch glasses
Maybe
in order
not.
to read it.
Yeah,
I have computer glass. My eyes are
jam. I love obscure independent stuff like that.
Mike Matthews. It looks like.
Okay.
Oh, Clark Hallbaker.
Okay. Yeah.
I've
actually got that issue.
Yeah. Great stuff.
You know what's frustrating? They say coming soon, and it never came.
Yes, but there was a lot of that back then.
We got to talk sometime, either on Comic Funnies or whatever, Sunday Funnies. We've got to talk Atlas Comics, Seaboard.
Yeah.
Because that was really a time there,
Yes, it was.
Where they increased the page rate, got like Pat Broderick, Steve Ditko.
They brought a lot of people into the industry and used a lot of the old workhorses. Too.
Yeah,
Terry Austin got his start there.
Rich Buckler.
Yeah.
Neil Adams. I mean,
they used anybody that wanted to make money.
Yeah. And they even did like an Archie-esque type title or two.
Mm-hmm.
And they did. And magazines. Came out with a few magazines as well. They were trying to
High Adventure, I think it was called. Thrilling Adventure Comics, I think
Grim
it was called.
the Ghost. I mean,
the Grim Ghost. Yeah.
Yeah, Grim Ghost. You had just some more like 2000 or something like that.
Yeah, more like 2001, I think it was called.
Yeah.
It's a great old stuff.
Phoenix.
Planet of the Vampires, like you mentioned.
Yeah.
Phoenix.
Yeah, we need to talk to Atlas Seaboard because I would like to learn more about that, and really they came out with like 50-something different title or
at once.
At once, yeah. And it was like but none of them went over 4 issues.
Yeah.
And
the 4th issue, usually everybody turned into a superhero too.
They were really trying to draw, weren't they? The artist away from Marvel and DC.
What's that? Larry's company, Larry Lieber, Stan's brother.
Larry
was tied
Lieber,
into that.
Yeah. Larry Lieber did some of the illustrating in that, didn't he? Yeah.
Yeah, he did.
I've got one magazine where they've got one character that never made it. It was slated to do Atlas Seaboard, but they were canceled. And I think it's the only magazine that actually shows you the Steve Ditko created hero. That's, only, I'll have to look that up. It's got Charles Bronson. It's kind of like a film type magazine or something, but they did an article at the time about Atlas Seaboard, and they show you that Steve Ditko character. It's probably the only thing left of that character.
And I know they
had to take that character and do something with it. He did. Ditko did the Devastator for Atlas Seaboard.
Oh yeah, yep,
yeah.
Devastator.
Did you ever pick up any of that during the Bronze Age?
All the time. Yeah.
Did you really? How about Charlton books?
All the time.
How about Harvey books?
My big love of the Charlton books were always the oddball superhero stuff. I was a big fan of any oddball superhero I didn't know. I had to know.
Well, Charlton Bullseye. That's what got me reading. Where they reintroduced Captain Atom, Blue Beetle, and the Question.
My barber. Back when
and then, of course, Thunder Bunny that we mentioned before. Thunder Bunny. The reason I liked Thunder Bunny was
Charlton
he could
books.
just clap his hands and become like a Superman rabbit, or Captain Marvel rabbit, Shazam.
Right.
Which
that was Happy the Magic Bunny was Hoppy the Marvel bunny from Fawcett that they took over to Charlton and printed a couple issues worth of stories over there. Yeah, great stuff. I mean, I love comics history, just love it.
Yeah. Well, they actually came out with Charlton Bullseye in a magazine format, but then they started doing the comic book size,
right?
And that's where I saw it first.
That had a bunch of oddball stories in it too. You never knew what was going to be in there. Whatever they had a drawer full of, they
had a Barbarian issue. They had a funny animal story with issue 2. They had Blue Beetle and Blue Beetle and the Question. On the first issue, that's what captured my attention. And then the second issue, they went funny animal. I was like, I'm not getting that. But I read most of those Bullseyes. I think I've got a whole collection of them now. I only did about 15 issues of that or something. But
not very many. But none of the Charltons really lasted very long.
The quality was so bad.
Titles or numberings,
the quality was so bad. The paper at the bottom was deckled in different levels with the pinholes.
Yep. Somebody was supposed to do a documentary on Charlton. I don't know if they ever did, but they have a very colorful, very interesting history.
Yeah, and Ditko did a lot of work for him.
That's because they paid him a page rate and they left him alone.
Did they pay a higher page rate for Ditko?
No, they paid lousy to everybody, but Ditko was able to do what he wanted to do over there. That's how you got the Question.
Yeah.
Yeah. He would bring them stories or whatever. They just pay him and print them.
Even during the 70s, he did a lot of covers, a lot of that Ghost of Dr. Graves, or I don't know, different, titles that dealt with the mysticism and whatnot. And then he kind of had a character called the Traveler that was kind of like Phantom Stranger.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. Well, yeah,
the great bookend
is,
character.
Randy knows what I'm talking about.
I do.
Randy knows.
Well, I grew up with the majority of that stuff. Most of my early Charltons I got introduced to from my barber, and then there was a local convenience store at the corner that would sell 3 and 5 packs with the logo cut off of them, all in a bound pack for like $0.25. Hey, Glenn, good to see you. We're just here jabbering old farts talking comics, man.
Yeah. Well, that we were talking the
Atlantean.
Yeah. What do you want people to know about the Atlantean, Randy?
It's sword and sorcery. It's Kull, off of the Kull that you know. Only it's the Atlantean's really based off of the Shadow Kingdom book. It's not exactly like Marvel's Conan or Marvel's Kull or Dark Horse's Kull or any of the other Kull adaptations. It's all original material. It's original stories, illustrated by the great Russ Leach, and written by me, mostly written by me. Issue 2, I had help from Russ. Russ gave me like a little rough outline, and Charles Santino, who's got experience writing and editing Conan for Marvel, sent me a little story about Kull's youth that I was able to incorporate into the story for Atlantean 2. But every every Atlantean issue is meant to be read on its own. You don't have to have read everything before it or after it in order to understand it. It's not every issue is self-contained. It's got a good beginning, middle, and ending to everything. Just having a blast writing it. I'm so honored to have Russ wanting to do this type of material. This is, something that I literally grew up with the Barry Smith and John Buscema Conan's. Just big admirer of Howard's work, and we hope we do it good justice, and we hope you're entertained by it. And that
are these werebears? Are they werewolves? What is this?
Yeah, they're big werebears. Kind of werebears. They don't call them a werebear, but they're kind of a large bear wolf type monster character that they run across. And like I said, every issue is meant to be read on its own, or if you read them all in a line, you get a little broader story to it. They're out hunting shape-shifting lizard people that were introduced in the Shadow Kingdom 1, but you don't have to have read Shadow Kingdom before that. But I recommend you read Shadow Kingdom as well, because it's just a great yarn. It's a great story.
And you have that as an add-on, and you also have that over at arrowcomics.store, right?
We only have a couple issues available over at the store. You can also get it from Amazon.com, Barnes & Noble, any bookstore that orders the Ingram ordering system. And also criticalblast.com has not just the hardback, but they also have a couple of other different formats of that of the work as well.
Is the Atlantean here the first time that Critical Blast is fulfilling one of your projects? Or
no, they did Shadow Kingdom for us.
Oh, it did. Okay.
Yep. Nice folks. Did a real good job. And Russ over in the UK is handling all of the UK and European orders. And Critical Blast is handling everything here in North America. So,
Randy, what are you going to do for the rest of your evening on Halloween? Do you hand out candy? Do you have trick-or-treaters?
No, I had enough a good a taste of Devil's Night as I ever want to have last night when somebody decided to vandalize my car.
Oh, yeah.
So I've got the car parked in the garage tonight. The lights are off. I'm huddled down here in the basement. I actually have a commercial job I absolutely have to get to because I was gonna make my excuses. We're almost at 3 hours anyway. So I can jabber about comics all day. But as I'm sure Glenn would tell you, say he finds us in the last few minutes that we're on. But
I appreciate you jabbering as much as you did, because
anytime you want on, you give me a little notice, give me a subject, and I'll dig up what I've got. We'll go on it. So,
all right.
You want to talk Atlas? Give me a couple of weeks to run through my long boxes. I've got quite a few of that material.
Oh, good. Yeah, I
love
would love
stuff.
to see some of your collection. You bet.
Well, we show that off Friday mornings, 5 a.m., Comics by Night, and Sunday mornings on Sunday Funnies. So, on the Indie Comics Network.
Well, I'll try and be there tomorrow. I always enjoy
Mobius tomorrow upon a star. Yep. Upon a Star is what we're looking at. Mobius Upon a Star. It's a great reprint book that Epic did way back when they reprinted his whole library of material and beautiful trade paperback books. And then on Sunday,
he did Silver Surfer, and he also I think that's where I started really paying attention.
He did a great Silver Surfer book. I was introduced to Mobius from Heavy Metal 1 with Arzak. Yeah.
Okay. I love his Western stuff. Isn't Blueberry?
Incredible. Yeah, we have to look at that too. Then on Sunday, we'll be looking at Fire and Water, which is a retrospective look at Bill Everett's artwork.
And
that's the
awesome.
early forming of Marvel. He's the creator of Submariner. A lot of great material in there to take a look at.
Oh, yeah.
Just some fun stuff. So,
Yeah, Mobius tomorrow.
Glenn, Mobius tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
And it's beautiful stuff too. Mobius is just such a.
I have not early voted.
Gift to comics.
Patty coming in there. Did you vote for Trump? I haven't early voted yet, so
I am waiting until the day, election day. Yeah. So I will happily stand in line.
Okay. Yep. Yeah, you heartily stand in line. Yeah.
Happily stand in line. Yep.
Yeah. One way I do it, Randy, is I go and see, where the people that are going to vote opposite of me, and I see all who people they endorse, and I go, well, mark them off. Not going to vote for them, or them. I look at the yard signs, especially locally.
Yep. Not voting for that one. Yeah.
Yeah.
They're encouraging everyone to wear their bright orange construction vest when they go to vote. The garbage man vest.
Well, Randy,
we'll see
Wonder
if
Twin
they don't
powers
get stopped.
activate.
Yeah, buddy.
Form of a great comic book collector here.
Yeah.
He knows his
Love this stuff.
Yeah. And have a good get to that artwork.
Shadow Kingdom folks, Atlantean. I've got some commercial vinyl. I absolutely have to get prepped up for tomorrow, or I will be in trouble.
So. All right. Well, hopefully I'll get up early and see you tomorrow as well. And
I hope so too. We will be there. Hope you are.
Say the magic words and we'll get out of here. 2 of them. Keep collecting.
Yeah, keep collecting, and thanks for being here. We'll see you.
Thank you.